Ugh. Morning.
Morning.
Let's see, I'm going to sure the other commissioners have the link.
Okay. I don't see anyone else at the moment.
Maurice, do you mind sending an email out to the rest of the commissioners right now? The WebEx link, that'd be great.
Sure, sure. I don't have everybody's email address readily available, so it might take a few minutes.
Why don't you send it to Marka and then she can get it out to the commissioners? Assistant
Okay,
Director Fields.
will do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, a bunch more folks just signed on.
I see the councilman. I see Commissioner Fluker. I see Commissioner Downing.
I see Commissioner Paul.
Okay. And I think that's it because Commissioner McCray Scott's on vacation, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, it's 9 o'clock, so if you, when you're ready, we can go ahead.
Absolutely. We have a very full agenda today, so I'm going to go ahead and read the preamble to get us kicked off. In compliance with the notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conduct its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter via our websites and email have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter. Thank you.
Okay. Is Michael here to call the roll?
I'm doing it today. This is Marka.
Thank you. Assistant Director?
Downing,
Present.
Fluker,
Present.
Curry,
Present.
Paul,
Present.
Slife.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. So from the last meeting, I think our first item is the Buckeye Master Plan. I think Commissioner Fluker will need to recuse himself. Is that correct?
That's
for
correct,
this first
Madam
item?
Chair.
Okay. So please note his recusal. If you can go to the next slide. This is actually presentation for final approval of the Buckeye neighborhood plan, and we have presentations here from City Architecture. I think normally we would have heard this at design review in that phase, and so just to be safe, I'm going to swear in anyone from City Architecture who's going to speak to this matter. Please, I'll just read please note if you're going to speak to this, say yes. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Also, please go ahead, and then we'll ask questions towards the end.
Good morning, Commission, staff, and those joining. My name is Julian Curtis, Director of Public Engagement and City Planner for City Architecture. I'm actually going to pass this to Director Joy Johnson, Burton Belcar, and Bianca Butts to kick it off, and then I'll pick it up a little ways in. But good morning and thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Good morning to the commission and all that are represented here. As Julian said, my name is Joy Johnson, and I am the Executive Director of Burton Belcar Development. We're the nonprofit community development corporation that serves the Buckeye Central and Kinsman neighborhoods in alphabetical order. And today we're here to share with you our community-wide, community-led neighborhood plan. And our project team is listed here. And I want to acknowledge Dawn Mays, who was formerly on our team, who helped put the framework together for this plan and left us in good hands with Bianca as we finished it out. It was important for us not only to have design professionals on our team from City Architecture, but to also have engagement professionals to help make sure that we got community input. Community input is just as important as the design, and we don't have a design if we don't have the community voice to respond to. And so we worked with Seven Hill for community outreach. We worked with a firm called Design Explorer to help us come up with the project branding, as well as engage the youth in our community. And Urban Partners performed a market analysis so that we had data to align with the community's needs and our responses to those needs. Next slide. Our steering committee actually selected the design team. So it wasn't us that selected the team. We had 3 finalists, and the steering committee reviewed all of those finalists, and they decided who they wanted to lead the plan. The steering committee is made up of residents and stakeholders in the community, including being supported by Assistant Planning Director Market Fields, who also lives in the neighborhood. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bianca Butts on our team, and she's going to talk about the goals of the planning process.
Good morning, everyone. We really have 5 goals for this project. The first was to develop a comprehensive community plan for the greater Buckeye neighborhood. The second was to consult and convene the steering committee to inform the framework of this strategy, and Joy just went over those members. The third was to lead a series of innovative and creative gatherings that we could have a positive user experience and gain insight from residents on the feedback that could inform the plan, and ensure that these events had a virtual and in-person component, but of course we comply with health regulations at the time of these engagement activities. Our fourth goal was really to embed the existing context of development that was already happening in the neighborhood into the plan. And then fifth was to really identify opportunities for new developments, incorporate those into our recommendations for implementation. So overall, all of these 5 goals led up to us coming up with the plan that Julian is going to describe, and that we want to be the bedrock of how we continue to engage with the community going forward. Next slide, and Julian.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, Joy. This is a look at our project study area. And for those that speak the statistical planning area language, or SPA, is comprised of Buckeye, Shaker, and Buckeye Woodhill to form what is roughly a 3 square mile study area comparable in size to Tremont, but however, located on Cleveland's east side, facing systematic challenges that present themselves in different ways in some of the west side communities. Development investment is building, however, in large part due to significant planning that's taking place and ongoing and has occurred in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This image, this visual captures a lot of that planning work that has been done, much of it in recent time, from the Buckeye Road refresh to elevate the east, Mayor Jackson's Mayor Transformation Initiative, along with Woodhill Choice and other initiatives led by the city of Cleveland. And most recent, the Empowering Black Futures neighborhood program through the Fifth Third Foundation. Again, much of this work adopted by the Planning Commission are led by the city of Cleveland. And this really acted as a foundation and was able to really kind of tap back into the same community members and folks that have informed many of these processes to help guide this process as well. Next slide, please. Much of that conversation occurred through 4 community events, all held virtually due to the times in which we were still living in. But again, continuity with this work starts with continuity with community. We have 4 lively interactive events to garner neighborhood support, build community, and have candid conversation and build support around this work. If you've been a part of events that City Architecture, 7th Hill, and Design Explorer, Jacinda Walker have led or guided, you know that they are lively, loud, filled with music, fun, but also blend with the seriousness that these conversations deserve. We're building in joy and laughter and playfulness to really get to the root of some of that candid conversation and dissolve some of those barriers. I believe David is with us from 7th Hill. Go to the next slide, please. If he is, he can grab this. If he's not, I'll keep moving. Yeah, I see you, David. I'll pass it to David from 7th Hill. Yeah.
Hey, Julian, thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. So as one of the modes of input for the project, we had a survey that helped us get some high-level information and priorities that then led the design of some of the public meeting questions where we could dig in a little bit deeper to understand, with higher resolution, what some of these high-level comments where those priorities were coming from for residents. So we were able to track where participants lived, and about 3/4 of the survey participants lived in Buckeye. Our racial breakdown correlated pretty closely with the demographics of the area because our project area expanded a little bit outside of the Shaker Square region. So there's a lot of diversity within the project area that we're working in. We asked residents what they call where they live, so we can see in their own words how they refer to their neighborhoods. And most of the responses came back with Buckeye or Buckeye Shaker, but we also heard some other things like Chalk and Buckeye Woodhill. So we know that we had participation from the full range of the area. And then we got into some of the questions that focus on what can we do to change things for the better? What are some of the top priorities? And something that really came across through the focus groups that we had with youth, as well as the survey and in meetings that we had virtually, was safety. This concerns kind of cross-cut through different demographics and different modes of input. So that was something that we took as a very important kind of center point for our work. Do you want me to go to the next slide, Julian, and talk a little bit? Okay. So another mode that we used for input was a mobile engagement station. We thought that, given the need for virtual meetings, we wanted to have some in-person interactive component. And rather than ask people to come to another meeting, we thought it'd be more effective to essentially take the public meeting to the street. So in order to make that experience more inviting and fun, we built this. And I mean, myself and Ariel Verguez, a local artist and a Cleveland artist, built this station that can fold and pack in the back of a car. And it includes a table that folds out. And importantly, on the backside, there's a hand-painted mural that Ariel made of the Trumpet Man on Buckeye, so that it could create like a really clear visual cue that this is something about your neighborhood, along with the brand identity that Jacinta created. And then on the other side, you can't see it in this photo, but it has questions or prompts that we ask folks to answer. And so as we're standing there, we can ask them to answer the questions and collect their feedback. We had this station out at Simon's Market on Buckeye. We had it at the library, as you can see here, in other locations in the neighborhood. And we plan to hand this off to BBC so they can continue to use it for engagement going forward.
Thanks, David.
Sure.
Next slide, please. Again, and paired with that, as David alluded to, and led by Jacinta Walker of Design Explorer, we held 3 youth workshops to, again, take a deeper approach to engagement and really teasing out the youth voice. Go to the next slide, please. We held 3 of these workshops with roughly middle school age students at Harvey Rice, Sunbeam, and Intergenerational School. At least a dozen attended each event. We asked them to identify the loves of their neighborhood, what they loved about the neighborhood, and what they sought to change about their neighborhood or improve. And man, these designs these ideas jive with what we heard from the adults in the community, the folks that typically attend community events on Thursday evenings. So they love the people, they love the parks, they love their homes, and frankly, they want to be safe and they want to gather together safely with their friends and with their loved ones in community, and they love Buckeye, right? So it was again a fascinating engagement. Jacinta is masterful at getting young people to engage. Even when they want to be standoffish, and it was incredible to see these folks, these young people, see themselves as designers and design alongside with us. So next slide, please. This qualitative information we've gathered is also supported by quantitative research done by Urban Partners out of Philadelphia, from the market analysis. Next slide, please. Just going to focus on a few elements that represent the challenges faced by the community that we look to strategically address through this work. You could advance the slide. Maybe it's frozen on my screen, but I'm going to keep talking. Over the past 2 decades, jobs have pretty steadily declined in Buckeye, making it difficult across age groups to find work and kind of limiting hyper-local opportunity. That being said, you'll see these as it does advance, that folks are commuting out of there. So jobs steadily declining, as you can see from this graphic. Want to be conscious of time, and folks is be respectful of that. So next slide, please. So where are folks working? Looking at commuting patterns from 2022 to 2018, excuse me. The greatest share of folks are leaving the city for work, with a small but increasing share working nearby University Circle. This is arguably could be attributed to more intentionality from institutions reaching into the local neighborhoods adjacent, and also new housing options coming into the community for folks that work or already were working or have been attracted to working at University Circle and now having the opportunity to live in the adjacent neighborhood. Data is a bit dated, but with these assumptions, our assumption is that this trend is continuing as those changes are happening nearby and in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. As you all know, jobs are directly tied to income, and income is tied to housing and ultimately ownership. So among those challenges, housing is high ranking in the neighborhood, with a significant share paying more than 30% of their income, representing cost burden. If paying more than 30%, you're a cost burden. So large contingent is cost burden, creating a gap in affordability. And the affordability gap is largely attributed to the quality of housing that's available in the neighborhood. because while there is housing available, the quality can be in question. Also tied to this, next slide, please, are the investors in many cases that own some of the housing that you can question the quality of. So quality is already impacted by the care of the landlord on the rental side and the availability and accessibility on the owner side. All right, so this data is relatively fresh from October 2019 to October 2020. The majority of home buyers are investors from out of states, as this graphic depicts. And even to go take it deeper, if you look to the right of the slide, not only are the majority of investors buying the homes in the neighborhood, the majority of them do not live in the state. Next slide, please. What are they buying? Mostly the Buckeye double or the duplex, right? As you can see on the right, the share of owner occupants, what are they buying versus the share of investor buyers, what are they purchasing? And this is leading to fears of gentrification being realized. So construction is being purchased by owner occupants, the Buckeye duplex is predominantly being purchased by investors, seeding displacement and creating real fears in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. All this information we've taken and is built toward our recommendations for this work, supporting growth, improving the quality of conditions for community, doing it together in a unified manner, establishing a one Buckeye, creating stability and also creating a standard of design. All this is really supporting and building toward one of the really focal points of this work, which was centered on anti-gentrification. So our recommendations will seek to directly address gentrification, or really the displacement that's tied to gentrification, but also indirectly address this as well with things that are centered on more cultural side rather than the physical displacement side, but also the cultural displacement side, focusing kind of across what gentrification or the ill effects of it really mean for a community. Next slide, please. Recommendations are shaped around 4 themes: identity, economic strength, housing choice, and healthy connections. And moving forward, you'll see the supporting initiatives tied to this work that are already going on in neighborhoods, things like Elevate the East, things like Steps to Equity, work done by the John Carroll students in the neighborhood. So we're tying back to work that's already being done in the community, Buckeye Road Refresh, and not working in isolation while advancing the goals of this work. Next slide, please. We'll start with identity and building toward a unified Buckeye. I want to tell a quick story. We showed a map similar to this, but it had 4 quadrants. Kind of, you can imagine it's kind of chopped up into 4. And we're going to present recommendations based on kind of geographies, northwest, southwest, etc. And a resident approached us and said, "You told us this was going to be a unifying process. We're going to be one Buckeye. And the first thing you show us is an image of the neighborhood divided into 4 squares. Like what are you trying to do?" So we immediately addressed that by removing that image and never showing it again, and having conversation that again was centered on unifying Buckeye and being together and recognizing that there are individual sub-neighborhoods or groups or organizations or streets that have a unique identity that they want to cherish and protect, and respecting that, but also looking at it in a way of, we have neighbors, we share this space as Buckeye together, and how do we collectively unify around things that we share while maintaining our personal desires, our personal kind of identity that we have a lot of affection for. So we're gonna, on each of these kind of recommendation slides that we'll pivot through here, we'll have site-based recommendations where we can place things physically in the environment, and more neighborhood-wide recommendations like the term unity or like neighborhood cleanup that can apply across the neighborhood and even beyond. So we'll start with identity here. Next slide, please. Among the recommendations, which there were a number, among identity, we're going to focus on 3 here. Neighborhood cleanup, with work already being led through the Nehemiah project and Burnt Mill Car, and really just kind of cleanliness and beautification being something that arose to the top as a significant desire by community, and how we continue to build and strengthen those. Branding and wayfinding, again, that ties back to how do we celebrate individuality while demonstrating a togetherness of one Buckeye. So the branding developed by Jacinda Walker for neighborhood planning process. This is taking kind of the cues of that and pulling it into recommendations for what branding and wayfinding could look like in the neighborhood through banners, directional signage, and monument signage. This is what you see here on the right side of your screen. Again, we're recommending that be adapted or be applied in some way, certainly with more community process to follow. But there's a lot of excitement that the plan and support built through this planning process around that. And unity, which continues to grow through really leveraging grassroots leadership, creating the strongest connections across wards and across those that serve in the neighborhood, and improving those neighborhood perceptions. And a lot of that is tied to how folks arrive into the community. Next slide, please. As you can see here, this is Woodland and East 96. So just to the east of Opportunity Corridor along Woodland Ave, we're kind of standing with our backs toward Woodhill, existing Woodhill home site, thinking about these over underpasses that you experience coming into the neighborhood from the west, and how we can brighten those, enliven those, and create an experience where you know you've arrived at Buckeye, and something again that builds pride and builds self-esteem and all those things in the neighborhood as one arrives. Next slide, please. Our next area of focus is housing choice, and really supporting that investment that's already taking place, but also trying to identify where areas of additional opportunity to provide affordability, to preserve what's existing, and acquire what's desired can be put in place, in addition to the more neighborhood-wide establishing a lead-free community and putting tenant protections in place for those that are renters with challenging landlords. These things tie directly to the Woodhill Up Next work, which is providing a significant amount of affordable housing, new affordable housing into the neighborhood, in addition to work under the previous administration with the Transformation Initiative dollars. Next slide, please, excuse me. So it starts with supporting investment in a variety of housing types, again, tying back to anti-displacement while advancing those lead-free Buckeye and tenant protections. So preservation, affordability, and housing options rose as top priorities. So this is putting mechanisms in place to limit, if you will, to how do we favor local investor ownership over out-of-town ownership, thinking about strategically how we create ways to do that successfully and legally, and also building local labor to help build local wealth in Buckeye. So there's many homes that require housing improvements. Can we create a pipeline of local individuals to repair, restore, and ultimately acquire these homes in Buckeye, keeping land, keeping ownership local, things like community land trusts that are being established in the Huff neighborhood and other neighborhoods on the east side and across the city as a mechanism to help support that as well. Continue to maintain affordability, building from the work of Woodhill Homes, establishing community benefits agreements, and other lease purchase type programs that BBC has already led, how we're seeking to expand those and build from the growth that's occurring, all while doing this in the realm of creating options. There have been a number of housing types being constructed across the neighborhood, from townhouse to single family, et cetera. Can continue to do that and creating a focus on that, and while also kind of restoring the most prevalent piece of architecture or housing type in the Buckeye duplex. But again, using those methods to provide rental options with quality landlords and ownership options as well. Next slide, please. So we kind of round this out here with Healthy Connections. This is now really focused on movement in and around and through the neighborhood. So improving the quality of movement, creating new places to gather and reasons to move throughout the community. This is something that we heard a lot about from the young people, wanting to have outdoor spaces to gather safely and move through safely and securely and comfortably in multiple kind of dimensions of the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So here we focused on transit waiting environments, which is something that came up in the Buckeye road refresh work. I heard more from this in community during this process of creating creative spaces to gather when you're waiting for public transit, and also that are not only playful and fun, but also have technology and shelter from the elements as well. And connecting with the youth, again, this notion of being able to be outside and do things you can't do now safely in the neighborhood, such as connecting with animals or in nature in creative ways, apple picking, having dog parks or skate parks, different types of amenities that aren't found now in the neighborhood, and how those might manifest and where they might manifest. The neighborhood has a significant amount of land bank lots in the neighborhood, that many of which are adjacent, that can create contiguous spaces for something significant to occur in the form of an outdoor public gathering or nature center-like space, and blend that with development as well. Access to the internet remains a challenge, and extending that Empower CLE network here is also a recommendation put forth. Improving transportation options, from again leveraging those land bank lots to create trails and connections to the neighborhood that don't exist now, kind of breaking up the blocks, particularly on the east side of our study area. And lastly, recreational facility, something unique to Buckeye that offers different options that maybe aren't centered around basketball or particular sport, but are centered around just gathering folks together to leverage technology, music, design, other forms of expression, space to do that in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This movement, again, manifests itself not only in adjusting the roadway, which is currently being done along Buckeye Road. These are visuals from the Buckeye Road refresh, showing how the road is being reworked, where transportation waiting environments can be enhanced, street buffers and bike lanes, and parking and parklets should be established with the wayfinding that this process has developed, put forth, and creating again these new fresh spaces that blend the desires of both planning processes and community, and create a new transformative spaces, particularly along Buckeye Road, which serves as that kind of key backbone for the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Lastly, improved economic strength will be necessary to obtain the improvements in the three areas we've discussed so far: identity, housing, and healthy connections. Next slide, please. Focus here on small business support, job training, reuse and incubation space, particularly around the food service, and build from existing models like Cleveland Owns, like Edwin's, union-led training programs, experience of Burton Bell Carr with the Box Spot and Kinsman, and also targeting younger audiences through this work, and putting forth attractive options for young people to gravitate toward, that are ultimately entrepreneurial and will be fruitful economically, so they can partake in the success that's out here to obtain. As we focus on reuse and restoration here as well, Buckeye Road is really our target for this work, and the target of Burton Bell Cars as well, and particularly the anchor of that street or that corridor being the Moreland Theater, which creates significant opportunity for transformation such as this to occur. Next slide, please. With this, I'm going to pass it back to Director Joy Johnson to talk about the future of the Moreland Theater.
Thank you, Julian. And how are we on time? We're good on time?
Do you have you know how many more slides or how much more you have?
Oh, 3, I believe, right? 2,
Okay.
3, 2, 3.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll talk quickly just to say that as we present this plan to you, we're also beginning project planning so that we can get to the implementation phase. And so one of those projects is the Buckeye Arts Innovation and Technology District. As Julian said, Burton Bell Carr owns several properties on Buckeye Road, commercial structures that we were able to purchase through the Mayor Jackson's Neighborhood Transformation Initiative, including the Moreland Theater. And we have identified a concept of bringing Black arts and creating a destination for people to visit, not only in the city, but in the country. So we have beautiful places in our neighborhood like Little Italy, if you want Italian culture, Slavic Village, if you want pierogies, and other cultural experiences. But we want to have a place where people can come and have the Black experience, and also generate support for area commerce. So that is in the works, and we will continue to work with our local design review commission as those plans further materialize. And I will, next slide, and turn it over to Bianca. Oh, that's just more renderings. Next slide. Bianca, this is you, right? No, yes, no?
I'll do 2 seconds. Yeah, just again, the collection of recommendations that we've put forth to show really how much thought, how much overlap. And really just again showing a very messy depiction of how we plan to reshape this neighborhood through this work. The next slide just shows our alignment with the 2020 Connecting Cleveland goals and demonstrating that this work is pulled through with the Global Raw Cities recommendations. And now, Bianca, for the last slide, I'll turn it over to you.
A lot has been said today about this neighborhood plan and about the engagement that we did to bring this plan forth. But really, this is the start of now another engagement process, because now we have to roll this out to community and let them know that this is the plan. And really, our intention with that is to make sure that this plan continues to be a document that is referred to as all of the many developments and projects that are already happening in Buckeye. We want to make sure we can tie those existing developments and things that are going to be implemented to what's being stated in this plan. So as we talk about the digital divide and resources begin to come to our neighborhood, we're able to connect those to this plan. And as developments happen with Woodhill Choice and with Shaker Square and with other items, we want to be able to connect them to this plan. So we're developing a way to really roll out to community a concise way to deliver all these development updates that we hope to introduce in September, so that we can continue to engage residents and other neighborhood stakeholders on all the processes as they continue to evolve. So this plan is not the end of an engagement process, it's actually the start of another process, so that this doesn't become an item that sits on a shelf, but it is something that we consistently refer to and continue to connect community back to these processes to hold us accountable and to make sure that community is continuously connected to our efforts. So thank you so much for your time and attentiveness, and we'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you. Thank you to you and your team. Before we open it up to commission members, I think we might have a couple additional people who would like to speak. First, I'd like to see if the councilman is on and would like to speak. He may not be on yet, but
Lillian,
yes.
I'm on. I apologize, I could not be there. I do fully support the plan. Just to give you some background, one of the reasons why we brought Burtonville Card to the neighborhood is so that they could develop a neighborhood plan. We know that there's a lot of things going on in the Larchmere, Buckeye, Woodland Hills community, and we want to make sure it all ties together. There's been significant input from the community on this plan, and I'm fully supportive of it.
Oh, thank you. Always nice to have the council president at Planning Commission. Come anytime.
Great. I also want to mention that Councilwoman Gray is on if she wants to comment.
How you doing, everybody?
Hello.
Good, good. Well, I am aware of the plan because I've been on the meeting with them when they started maybe 3 or 4 years ago, per se, but I wasn't really that greatly involved in the plan. I know the plan will most likely fit in what the future holds for Buckeye, per se. But I would just like to sit and talk with Director Joy Johnson a little bit more about the initial buildings, all the buildings that I wasn't aware that Burtonville Carr had to develop different structures on Buckeye. So
Okay. Thank you. I see, and I'm sure that Joy and Burton Bell Carr, you would be happy to have those additional meetings and convenings. So we'll ask that that follow-up take place. I also see a hand raised, Lisa Tolbert. Maybe not to speak, but is there anybody else from the community or any other residents or anyone else who would like to speak before we open it up to commission members? Okay, commission members, any questions for any of the presenters, applicants, council leaders? I have one. I'm just curious, and I think this may be for Joy. If you were to sort of say the kind of top one or two next steps or things out of this, I think our role at the Planning Commission is, to adopt this plan. And I know this is for final approval. And so that as things emerge or come from projects in the community, we can see how they fit within this vision and plan, which is really powerful. It helps us as additional projects come in. But curious from what you all might be driving, what you think the kind of first one or two big things might be.
Well, one will definitely be the Mayor's Transformation Initiative, the properties that we own on Buckeye Road, the 9 properties around 75,000 square feet. Under Mayor Jackson's administration, we were allocated $1.2 million for acquisition and stabilization. And so we've been working on those efforts over the last 3 years. In spite of the challenges of COVID. So really getting those buildings to the point where they're ready to be white box and ready to be occupied. And what we heard from this plan is that those buildings should be occupied by people from the community, providing services for the community. So we don't want sort of cookie cutter buildings, but we want businesses that reflect the culture and support the culture of the neighborhood. So that's definitely project number one. Following right behind, really concurrently, is a housing development project that we're doing in partnership with Fifth Third Bank, the Empowering Black Futures Fund. Cleveland is one of 9 cities that Fifth Third Bank invested in across the country as a way to have an impact on rebuilding Black wealth. And so in Cleveland, Buckeye was the neighborhood. And there's a $2 million grant that's going to our partner, Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, and working with Burton Bell Carr and Cleveland Housing Network, CHN Housing Partners. We are going to acquire and rehabilitate vacant houses and also rehab houses that are currently occupied on the South Buckeye neighborhood is what we're referring to it as. So in the streets in Ward 4 that are south of Buckeye. So those are, and then I'll add that Fifth Third has committed another $18 million worth of investment to leverage, not in grant form, but to leverage those grant dollars. So we're looking at a total investment of $20 million. So those are our two, 1 and 2, and we're really working on them at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful. Commission members, any other questions or comments or a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval. This is really, really exciting for this neighborhood, and I wish you all the best as you move forward.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? I just want to commend you all for the process in the community, the thoughtfulness, the engagement, the kind of putting together something that I think will assist also us in ensuring that we can be your partner in helping to bring the vision together over a period of time. So I really want to thank you for that. And we look forward to actually working with you. We call the roll to Assistant Director Fields.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker.
He's abstaining.
Yeah, I got it. Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott, she's absent. Paul
Yes.
and Slife.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Motion carries, and really appreciate also your patience with moving this from last week. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I must recuse myself from the next agenda item. It wasn't
Okay.
clearly articulated who the developer or architect was. I actually checked and I had to recuse. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is actually a zoning map amendment, which is a public hearing. So I'm just going to read the rules for this public rezoning. First, we'll hear presentation from staff and answer questions from the commission. We'll hear sponsor testimony, the council person or the applicant directly. Then we'll open it up for public comment since it's a public hearing. First, we'll take testimony from proponents, those in favor. And then we'll take testimony for those who are opposed. We'll ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes or less if you're speaking to this matter, and that you state your name clearly and your address when I call on you to speak. So with that, the first item in the zoning map amendments is an unnumbered ordinance changing the use, height, and area districts of parcels of land along East 89th Street. This is Cedar to Quincy, and I think Shannon Leonard is here to speak to this.
Good morning, Chairwoman Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Planner, City Planning Commission. The purpose of this rezoning is a fairly straightforward, simple rezoning, is to fulfill the Fairfax Strategic Investment Plan of replacing some of the demolished structures with new residential units that meet the character and context of the surrounding neighborhood. To provide mixed income infill housing with 6 3-unit buildings and 6 8-unit mixed income rental units, and also to maximize public safety and walkability on this street. Next slide, please. So this section of East 89th is south of Cedar and north of Quincy. The proposed here is to change it to multifamily D1. It is currently 2-family B1. Next slide, please. East 89th Street, as you can see, to the north and to the south, it's flanked by commercial. To the north, it's the E.F. Boyd funeral home and corner store. And then to the south along Quincy is a pediatric office, as well as the Caramu house, where there's been significant investment. As you can see, the surrounding context is there's a mix of multifamily, 2-family, and retail. Next slide. And so again, this is just the existing conditions along East 89th Street. You can see that there are several lots that are available for infill housing, as well as the context at the corner of Quincy and the context of Cedar. Next slide, please. And these are the existing conditions along the street. There's a mix of 2- and 3-family housing along East 89th, and then there's several vacant properties. Next slide, please. And again, this is just kind of pointing out just the ownership along East 89th. It's a mix of city land bank, private ownership, and the other owner is Fairfax Development Corporation. Next slide, please. And so the proposal here is for 6 8-unit buildings and then 6 3-unit buildings in context with the other homes on the street. Next slide, please. And so this is the proposal. This will be coming through City Planning Commission later this month for final approval. It's a project through City Architecture, Mr. Tramble, and Fairfax Development Corporation. And this is really just, these homes are really to be in context with the surrounding properties that are already existing on this street. Next slide, please. And again, so this is a proposal for multifamily D1. On the public notices that went out, it did say establishing a 7-foot map setback. That was an error on my part. We are not establishing a 7-foot setback. As you can see, the properties along the east are a fairly deep lots, and on the west, they're also fairly deep in context with other lots across the city. And so a 7-foot setback is not needed. These properties will be in line with the existing setback on the street, which is roughly, I believe, 20 to 30 feet. And that's really it. That's the proposal here. We're changing to multifamily D1 to allow for this new typology of housing and to meet the Fairfax Development strategic investment plan. I believe it's supported by it is supported by Councilman Griffin. And I believe Denise Van Leer is here from Fairfax, as well as the developer and architect to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shannon. Great presentation. Would the councilman or the representative from the CDC like to speak before we open this up for public comment?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Just want to say that this is a project that we first visualized about 11 years ago, and now able to actually implement it. So very excited that this is on its way to being implemented.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe Council President Griffin has stepped away, but he did indicate to me that he's fully supportive and to pass that on if he weren't able to be here for this piece.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to open to the public portion of the meeting. If there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this zoning change, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Anyone in favor of the zoning change? I don't see anyone. I still see Maurice, Lisa's hand raised. You might want to just remove that from before. I'm not sure why there's a hand raised there. There you go. And then anyone opposed, anyone who is opposed to the zoning change or might have some questions about it to get more information. Okay, I don't see anyone here to speak to it, so I'm going to close the public portion and ask commission members for any questions or comments or motions.
There is one public.
There is one public question. Hi, I'm Regina Harper, the Street Club president of East 89th
Okay.
Street. The only concern that I'm really having in some of the other residents is that those homes and those houses being affordable for the people to live in when they're built. Are these homes going to be affordable? Because right now we're talking about $500,000 to $700,000 for houses, and we're feeling that it's not really completely fair for the people who have stayed in the community to help keep the community and maintain the community and not be able to afford to stay in the community by these prices. And we are concerned about the apartments that's going to be built, turning a quiet street maybe more into somewhat of a noisy street. That's our concern on East 89th Street.
Thank you for that. I'd say it's more of a kind of a question and a comment specifically. I don't know if Denise, you want to say anything about that?
Sure. So some of this project is actually going to be mixed income. So while these each unit has multiple has multiple units in it, because we wanted to put back on the street the look of large Victorians, but make it more than one unit. Construction prices are what they are today, but Regina, I don't know where you got $500,000 to $700,000. That's not my understanding of what the individual units will cost.
From one of our meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for that response. We're going to close the public portion and open it up to commission members for any comments or questions.
Approval, Madam Chair.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. I also want to note that I do think the design is quite excellent, and I think the model, this idea of a different typology, is actually really warranted, and you know, I think could be a really exciting model for the rest of the city to look at. So I commend you for that and look forward to seeing this. You can call the roll.
Sure. Downing,
Yes.
Fluker, I'm sorry, he recused himself. Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we'll hopefully see the product coming before us again soon. So thank you. Next item. This is townhouse development. in a two-family district, permanent parcel number 0701-08084, 083, 082, 081, and 080. This is Harbor Road Townhomes. This is at 2035 West 44th Street. Antonio Marinucci is here. I'm going to swear you in. I do think we've seen this before, but I could be wrong. So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning to the commission. My name is Antonia Marinucci. I'm the architect on this project. You guys have indeed seen this. We received approval for the design of this project, I believe back in February. And what we're seeking today is just approval to go from two-family to a townhome zoning designation. If you could go to slide 29.
Okay, just to clarify, before you go to, I think, the director, since we approved this from a design review perspective, or maybe to Shannon, we're just kind of now catching up the rezoning, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. You're just giving it a conditional use permit to allow it to be a townhome in this at the two-family zone.
Okay, so Antonio, you can probably move pretty fast since we've already actually approved the design and really get to what the issue is on the rezoning.
Sure. If you can just kind of move through, there's a lot of site context, which I don't know this is currently, it's just going to be really repetitive to what you guys have already seen. It's on West 44th Street, just south of Lorraine. I believe you're going to see the apartment portion of this later today, this morning. And we're looking at the townhome focus this morning. So this is just context photos. Okay, if you can stop here. This is the site plan for the townhomes. The blocks facing West 44th Street, we have called Harbor Row, and the townhomes that are on West 43rd Place are called we call them the Mew homes. So there's 11 units total. And again, what we're seeking today is just to the conditional use to build townhomes on this existing two-family site. Keep going, please. These are elevations of the 44th facing townhomes. Schematic floor plans, rendered elevations. Looking at the materiality, we're focusing on standing seam, aluminum roof, hardy board, and brick. Next slide, back side. To look at the side of the units as they turn the corner. We sort of dubbed the aesthetic here like a minimalist federal or modern federal approach. Materiality, again, keep going, please. Yep. And then these are the Mews townhomes facing again West 43rd Place, 4 units. Floor plans there, rendered floor or elevations. Context materiality for those Mews, again, hardy board and a dimensional shingle roof in a brick kind of walled terrace approach, keeping with like an English Mew model. Next slide. Materiality for the Mews. Lighting legend. Planting legend. Paving legend. And then if we could, yes, this one is the current existing parcel layout. Again, it is a two-family. Currently, what you see in the lower right-hand corner is 2 existing attached historic row homes that are to remain and not included in this redevelopment plan. Next slide. And here is the proposed parcel layout. Common element block as a middle driveway serving the backside of all 11 units. And then just a pretty standard kind of sublot division to create fee simple townhomes.
Just a question, the back units, are the front doors on the Muse? If you stop there, like, are the front doors actually on the sort of street, or are they on the Muse? Those back units.
The Mews are facing West 43rd Place, which is a brick paved alley that has other residents on it as well.
Yeah, and no, I'm asking the units that you're building that are in the back door.
Yeah.
Are their or any of their front doors facing the Muse or the street?
I guess I'm misunderstanding. The units that line West 44th, the front doors are on West 44th. And then the Mew units, the 4 in the back, 3 of the number 9, number 10, and 11, their front doors are on West 43rd Place.
Got it.
And number 8 faces, I think it's Apple Avenue.
The reason I was just asking was if they were facing the Muse, then we usually, with the new code, have been requiring a walkway, a dedicated walkway, but where that's how, you know, visitors would be coming, but you've addressed it because they addressed another street. So just wanted to clarify that. Commission members, any questions or comments or motions?
I move approval. Downing.
Second, Paul.
A motion and a second. Call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is a lot split and consolidation. This is permanent parcel number 112-17-081. This is at 15306 Lucknow Avenue. And I think the property owner here is to speak to this. We tabled it, so I need to remove it from the table. Can I have a motion to do so?
I move to remove it from the table.
Second, Fluker.
Motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Slife.
Charles?
Is he on mute?
I see him. Maybe, actually, I don't. Oh, there he is. Councilman, are you still on? Okay, well, motion carries. I think he stepped away, but we still have a quorum, so we'll go forward. Demetrius, I'm gonna swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? Uh-oh, is he here?
Chair Curry, I do not see Demetrius or Mr. Travis on. I'm wondering if the property owner for the property 15306 Lucknow Avenue is on, as Mr. Travis was simply the prospective property owner.
Right, because remember, we tabled this because we needed he hadn't purchased the property yet. So, all right, well, I should not have removed it from the table. We're probably gonna have to put it back on, so.
I do see Councilman Polensek on. Are you here to comment for this particular case? Don't hear anything. Okay, go ahead, Chair Curry.
Okay.
Chair, I move to table the project.
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Commissioner Paula had to drop off at 10.
Okay.
is Slife back on?
I'm here. Yes.
Slife, okay, Slife, yes.
Okay, that is tabled, and we'll see what happens in 2 weeks. The next lot split and consolidation is 9906 Madison Avenue. This is at 1986 West 99th Street. Mark Bacon is here from Rocky River United Methodist Church. If you're here, can I swear you in?
Yes.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for taking the time to hear our presentation. We became the owners of the former Trinity Methodist Church last spring of 21, and with that came a parsonage. Our original goal was to demolish the parsonage because it was in very bad condition on the inside, and use it for additional green space for the ministries we're doing there. But with our presentations to the Landmark Commission, they asked us to consider finding alternative uses for the house. So that's what we have been able to do over the last year. The site plan shows in blue the house to be separated, and in red is the church adjacent to us. Across the street is the firehouse, and around the corner is the elementary school. So the house lends itself well for other purposes, also adjacent to Cadell Park. Next slide, please. Here's the parcel plan. The corner of 99th and Madison is the church, and the old former parsonage as it is currently configured and allotted. Next one, please. So as I said, when we became the owners of the house, we were given the house from our conference, our Methodist Church conference, to see if we could find a further use of the church and reinvigorate the missions there. The house was pretty much uninhabitable. The former tenants had left it as a mess. We boarded up the windows and the doors to keep it from being further ruined. It had vermin in it. We think it's a 1918 single family house. Has an unfinished attic, unfinished basement. There's the sizes and the bedrooms, the kitchens. The good news is that the HVAC, the mechanical, was still in good shape. The asphalt shingle roof was still in good shape. And as the people that have viewed the house say, that it has good bones. So again, we were motivated to try to find a further use for the house. Go ahead, please. So when we became, like I said, when we became owners of it, we were asked to find further uses for the house. We want to keep the church as a free store. We have a program every Saturday morning where we give away small household appliances and clothing to the people in the community. And we're using the church, and upstairs we're using the sanctuary for church services on Saturday mornings. There's some drug anonymous programs that are going on in the church now that we've restarted. And we need the church and we need the garage to use those missions. So we've met up with the people from an organization called Sisters Haven Charity. They've just gotten their 501c3 certification from the IRS, and they'll use it for homeless, pregnant, and new moms up through when the baby starts walking. Then they'll find other ways for those moms to restart their lives. So I'm told it's a mission that's not well represented in our area, but certainly one that is very important and will mesh well with the programs that we're doing at the former Trinity Church. So to make this work for both entities, we've asked to do this lot split where we maintain control of the church, have an easement on the driveway, a permanent easement on the driveway, and the use of the house. So that's separated from the rest of the property. So the house maintains about a 3-foot walkway along the side of the house where the door is along the driveway, the backyard, and then they have parking on 99th Street. Okay, thank you. Next slide. So this gives you an idea of what the neighborhood looks like. The picture in the right-hand corner is the garage that I'm speaking of. There's a view of 99th Street, a picture of the fire station across the street, and a picture of Madison Ave looking west away from the church. Next slide, please. Again, the northeast view, that's the parsonage in question. On the top there, some of the boarding up of the windows we've had to do because people were breaking into the house and trying to live in there. So that's what we've done to protect the house until we can pass it over to Sisters Charity. Next slide, please. And then looking around the neighborhood, the Cadell Park, 99th Street, looking north and south. Our church, looking away from the house, the church that we're operating, again, the backyard that will become part of the former parsonage and for the use of Sisters Charity. Next slide, please. Give you an idea of what we found in the house when we took control over it. There's what I used to call a Pittsburgh basement. Toilet in the bottom. There's just a toilet and a sink in the basement level. And then there is a regular basement, bathroom, a full bathroom on the second floor. And as I said, the mechanical plant's in good shape. We paid for asbestos abatement, so we've made sure there's no asbestos left in the house. Next slide, please. This is the picture of the first floor of the house, the kitchen and the living room. The kitchen obviously requires complete remodeling. The living room probably can just be cleaned up and hopefully reused by the charity. Next slide, please. And then the second floor where the bath and tub and shower are, and the condition of the bedrooms.
Mark, you can probably jump to the lot split.
Okay, yeah, I'm almost there. Sorry, I'm going too slowly. Here it is right here. Yeah, so here's the lot split. We presented this. This has been approved by the county. We went through building and housing and made some adjustments on it so to make sure there was appropriate access to the house. And this is what they've approved. And I think the only step left is your commission.
Okay, and you'll be recording the easement for access?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's all I have, unless there's any questions I can possibly answer.
Thank you. Commission members, questions?
I move approval, Downing.
Second. Sorry.
Chair Curry, I just want to note Don Pettit from our staff has his hand raised if you wanted to comment.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I just want to say that the Landmarks Commission supports the lot split. Both of these properties are contributing structures in the Clifton West Boulevard Historic District. We think the lot split will help preserve the house and ensure its future viability, and we commend the church for working with us to find a solution to preserve the house. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion, a second. Can we call the roll?
Yes. Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife.
He
Yes.
made
That-
second. Oh, there he goes.
That
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. I appreciate it and do commend you for this and for saving the house. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Have a good day. Bye.
Next item. Can we go to the next slide? These are design review cases we're moving to, and this is the Sheet Service Station, new construction. This is seeking final approval, the corner of Brook Park and Pearl Roads. I'm going to swear in the applicants, Ellen and anyone else. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Okay. There's a note here that at the local level, this was approved unanimously for final design. Go ahead. And you can move pretty quickly through the drawings since this went through design review. Just really hit the highlights for us.
Great. So this just shows where the site is, and we can just scroll through pretty fast here if that's okay. So we're at the northwest corner of Brook Park and Pearl. It currently is an existing shopping center, Pearlbrook. The whole building will be demolished, but only sheets will be in the front. This is only to review the sheet site. So if you go, I think, to the next slide, it might show some possible use for the rest of the site. But again, right now we're just focusing on the sheets, which is adjacent to Brook Park, the majority of Brook Park Road there. This is a site plan that we settled on. It's got the sheets building, the fuel canopy. We have a drive-through lane and outdoor seating are some of the highlights. And we can keep just scrolling forward. This is the landscaping, and the next slide shows the actual plants that were discussed a lot locally at the Near West Committee meeting last time we spoke. And they recommended that we talk to the it is the urban forester to make sure that all of our plants are in compliance. But all these plants were selected from the approved list for the city of Cleveland. And then the next few slides are just some renderings of what the building will look like. You can see that outdoor seating, you can see the drive-through area and the fuel canopy. And then there'll also be slides that show just the colored elevation, so you can see the actual height and more signage and everything on there. And then the next slide will be building materials. And those are the same ones you just saw in the slides before. And then this next group is our signage package, and it shows both our wall signage and our monument sign, which is at the corner of Brook Park and Pearl. And that's our fuel canopy here. And then there's also the lighting plan is in this package, and then some information about stormwater that was required to be submitted. Things that aren't shown here, but we did submit are details that show our bike rack, all the outdoor patio seating, and just kind of like the exterior features that we have.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, because if they have questions, like how do you
But that was our presentation. We did have a lot of good discussion at the Near West meeting, like I said, about landscaping, and we look forward to moving this project through to the next step.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, any questions or more detail that you'd like to hear?
I do believe Councilman Harsh was on.
Okay, Councilman?
Yeah, hi, thanks. So I fully support this. Redevelopment at that intersection is really important. We haven't had anything in many decades. It's sort of fallen on hard times, and this will be a nice addition to that intersection, especially the landscaping plan I think is good with more trees. Brook Park can always use more trees. So I think this is a welcome development project.
Thank you, Councilman. It's good to have you, Planning Commission. Welcome. Anyone else, any other commission members, questions or comments or motion?
I move approval, Downing.
I'll second. Slide.
Motion and a second. Can we call the roll, please?
Yes. Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thank you, Councilman. The next item is Near West Design Review. This is Harbor Flats Apartment Building and District Lot Parking Lot new construction. This is seeking schematic design approval. And this is at West 44th Street and Apple Avenue. I think Wesley Harper and maybe a few others are here to speak to it. I'll swear you in. This went to local design review. It was unanimously approved with a condition here to provide alternate design options, demonstrating alternative lower central rectangles. I don't know what that means, but I think Wesley will let us know what that refers to. So Wesley, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
And is it anyone else here to speak to this as well?
Yes, this is James Simus with Local Development Partners.
Okay, do you also say aye for me?
Aye.
Aye, there you go. Okay, take it away.
All right, thank you. So this is basically phase 2 of a 3-phase project with Local Development Partners. The first phase on this map is shown to the right at the corner of Lorraine and West 44th Street. The orientation here for the north is to the right, just for reference. So this site is to the south of phase 1, and then Antonia presented phase 3, which is directly to the left on 44th Street. Our parcel is kind of pulling double duty where we are accommodating a good amount of surface parking for the retail component on Lorraine Avenue, and then on the remaining property along 44th Street, we're proposing this 15-unit apartment building. And we've worked closely with James and his team to get this project moving along. We were at Near West last week, and the design options for the rectangles. We'll get into that as we move along here. James, is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, thanks. Next slide, please. So here we have some context imagery of the surrounding neighborhood. At the top left, you'll see phase one of this development. To the upper right, you'll see the property in question. At the bottom left, you'll see some of the alleys that surround the site. We have Lorraine Court to our north, and then I believe it's West 43rd Place to the east. At the bottom, kind of middle bottom here, you can see some of the housing context, and then another image of phase one at the bottom right. Next. Here is our site looking northeast from the corner of Apple Avenue and West 44th Street. So, be looking basically at that southwest corner of the proposed project. Here's another view looking towards the southeast. Next. Here we're looking at the site from Apple Avenue. Next. And here we have the site plan for the project. And so the surface parking that we have shown here, we have 30 spaces. And some of that will be for the actual apartments, and then some of it for the commercial development to the right. Lorraine Court is actually two-way traffic to your right, and then so is Apple Avenue. So the remaining property on the site is dedicated to this 15-unit apartment building. It's a very simple layout. These units will be relatively small to keep the price point low. West 44th has had some repaving over the years, and so we have on-street parking that is striped. And of course, 44th is a one-way heading to the south. You can see in this site plan that we've set back the structure a couple feet, try and get that to be a little more than a couple feet so that we can have a small landscaped elevated planters to kind of give a bit of a buffer to the first floor units, to the sidewalk, and then also kind of gradually step up the building from the pedestrian experience. There will be street trees here. We would be burying any electrical wires that are along 44th Street, so those trees can hopefully grow without being hacked away by the power companies in the future. At the southeast corner, which would be the bottom left of our site, there's small areas of planting possible, and then along Lorraine Court, there are trash enclosures. The one closest to the building would be for the building, then the one at the bottom right would be for phase one. Next. First floor plan, we worked hard to get the living room and kitchens to be facing West 44th Street, so we could keep as much glazing along that frontage. We thought that having the most privacy in the bedroom would be the biggest priority here. You can see that from the rear, we have two entries that are ADA compliant. And then there is an additional entry at the upper right, which is not ADA compliant. Code requires 60% of entries to be code compliant. And since we wanted to elevate the building minimum 18 inches, per design review, and then some of the planning efforts or planning guidelines for this building, we put the accessible entries at the rear. At the upper left here, you can see there's a planter where you could have had another entry, but we think that having the entry closer to Lorraine makes more sense. So the area to the left here would be an additional area of planting, which we think makes sense on the stretch of 44th Street. Next. Typical upper levels. Next. Third floor. Next. Exterior elevations, the renderings do a better job of describing this. Next. So here we have the West 44th elevation. Again, this is a kind of a tight site, so we had to find some different methods of adding a little bit of three-dimensional depth to the facade. So we did that at the entry and the planting area. Some of the feedback on the design from Near West was potentially looking at some alternative schemes for these kind of these two boxes that define those inset areas. And so a scheme that we're leaning towards eliminates the upper vertical plane and pushes it back 3 feet. So it doesn't feel like as much of an enclosure, but still gives some coverage to the entry on the other side. The facade facing 44th is brick and metal detailing. The planters along 44th, per some commentary from Near West, would be lowered to be 36 inches. And then we have some cement board detailing between the windows that run horizontally. Next. Here's a view looking across the street. We're likely going to connect the two planters that you see in the middle and obviously lower them, as I mentioned. You can kind of get a better idea of the entry at the left side here, welcoming people walking off of 44th Street. Next. Here we have a view looking towards the northeast from the corner of Apple and 44th. You can see we're transitioning to a lapped cement board on the southern facade, and it wraps around the back and then to the north side for half that facade. Next. Here's a view looking towards the southeast. Again, here's where the lapped siding and brick transition. Kind of later in the game, while putting these renderings together, we started to think about signage that faces north towards Lorraine. And I think with the history of Lorraine having interesting signage, both blade signs and painted signs on buildings, we're looking at this as an opportunity to get a little more expressive here. So that the signage that you see here is kind of a placeholder. And when we come back for hopefully final design at Near West and planning, we'd have a more cooked scheme for that. Next. Here's a view of the rear and side of the building. Next. Another view of the rear. Next. And then the material palette, which I've kind of went over. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
If there's any comments from the commission, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commission members, any questions or comments? And I'd maybe make a suggestion to the director and to the commission if you're open. Although there were some signage and a little bit of alterations from local, if the commission's open to it, they can just go back to local and staff could sign off if you're okay with it for final, unless there's anything major from the commission. I think it might be warranted to not to have them be able to just go back to local. And if they resolve everything, they don't have to come back here. So just a suggestion. Commission members?
Madam Chair, could they address the design review comment? Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, they did it with the, I think you might have missed it, but I'll let Wes do it again. It was those two large sort of center points, or the, I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, they're almost like shadow boxes, I guess you could say. The two vertical elements in the facade. There's the top portion, which kind of creates an enclosure. We've looked at another scheme that pushes back that, the horizontal element at the top. It pushes that back several feet so that it doesn't feel as enclosed. Half the committee, I think, liked that alternative scheme. The other half was fine with this. So we're gonna hammer it out next time at Near West, I think.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll move approval incorporating an exploration of the design review comment, and also would suggest that staff review the signage elements in the future.
Okay. So I think the motion, just to clarify, would state that if you resolve both the signage and this design change with local, then the director has the authority to sign off on the final versus it having to come here. If you can't resolve it, you can always come here. But
Okay, great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll second Fluker. I would just like to add that I think this is a very nice resolution of creating density without having the embodied energy of putting elevators and things in. It's a nice solution, I believe. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment?
Passing comment that Wes had mentioned taking those two center planners and connecting them. I kind of like them separated, just for what it's worth.
Okay. Noted, and maybe they can talk to design or the local when they go back there if they'd like to keep it that way. So you can note that when you go to local design review that that's how the commission felt.
Great.
Okay, I'll call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. This next project is at 55 Public Square rooftop patio seeking final approval. You'll all recall that we saw the ground floor outdoor patio to this building and renovation a while ago. So this is the rooftop. Terry Fields, I'm going to just swear you in and anyone else speaking to this. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
And also note that this was approved unanimously by the local or the downtown flats design review. So take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm using my phone, so I apologize for my delay here. There we go. I couldn't get audio on the computer. So yeah, this is 55 Public Square. We're here before you with a roof deck request. If you can advance the next slide, please. This is just the existing conditions of it. It's just a typical roof. Yep. This one is showing the outline, that area there in the bottom left corner with all the notes pointing at it. That is the proposed area. Yeah, and so you can advance to the next slide, please. Again, just more information. We're having to put a couple of take out a couple of panes of glass out of the curtain wall and get doors in it rather for ingress and egress. Next slide, please. These are just more of the same details. Yep. We have a couple of landscaping things. That's the material palette. And some renderings of it. You can just go through the renderings if you'd like.
Question, so is the roof deck for the restaurant?
It is.
Like, so this is like, if you're going to the restaurant, you can eat downstairs outside or upstairs outside, basically.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and these are just some of the amenities they're going to have on the roof deck. Planters, a couple of small fireplaces and such. But that's essentially what we're looking at. Are there any questions? I know I kind of blew through that.
No. Commission members?
I move approval, Downing.
Second, Fluker.
Any other comments? I just note that I'm a big fan of finding as many rooftop terraces views in the city as possible. I think it, it's a great thing and we should do more of it. So thank you. Call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. I think we have mandatory referrals, which are usually presented by staff. So the first one is the intent to vacate a portion of Rockhurst Avenue between 105th and 107th. Wonder, Rick is here from the Office of Capital Projects and Engineering and Construction. So Rick, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. The first item we have is resolution number 694/2022. This one's declaring the intent to vacate a portion of Rockhurst Avenue between East 105th and East 107th Street. Purpose of this proposed vacation is to facilitate the development of the Gold Coast Lofts. The Gold Coast Lofts consist of a 4-story mixed-use structure, which will have 69 residential apartment units, both studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. We'll have commercial retail on the first floor with 133 parking spaces. This resolution has been supported by Councilman Conwell. The next 2 slides, you can actually see a rendering of the building. This one kind of a diagonal one. The next one, you can see front and back. We go to the next slide, please. You can see the vacated portion of Rockhurst that's being requested. And as we go to the following slide, hold on one second. The orientation is still the same as you saw here. The building is on the left side of the parcel on East 105th Street. So if you go to the next slide, you can see how the building is laid out. So with the parking lot and the building, and there's 2 existing businesses in that other area. There's a deli that has on the far right, and the other building is an abandoned business.
Right.
So that's it. We're looking to move forward with this. So it's your approval.
I move approval. Downing.
Taxes time.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Yeah, let's powwow internally here.
Marka, are you still on? Can we call the roll?
Sorry, I'm on. I was
you're on.
trying to get it off of mute. Sorry. Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have an additional declaring the intent to vacate all relocated Lorraine Court, a portion of West 48th Place, and a portion of Turn Avenue Southwest. Rick, I think you're here again for this.
Back up. Thank you. This is for resolution 695/2022, declaring the intent to vacate all of relocated Lorraine Court, a portion of West 48th, and a portion of Turn Avenue. The purpose of this proposed vacation is to facilitate the expansion of the urban community school campus. This vacation request is supported by Council Member Carrie McCormick. As you can see in the next slide, all that green, even in that one section that doesn't quite look green, kind of a blue-green, that's all belongs to the school. So what they're trying to do is get that remainder portion vacated, and then they control all the property on their site. So we're asking for this to be moved forward.
I move approval. Downing.
I will second.
Motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Y'all have a good day.
Okay. Now we have a series of special presentations on some public art as well. I'm going to ask the applicants to kind of move through just so we can keep a quorum as we go through. We have some plans, TLCI plans, and some additional kind of projects through the next section of the agenda. So we'll start with the first one, which is the Euclid Avenue TLCI plan. This is seeking final approval, and I think Callie from the city is here to present it as Callie Messerman. So I don't need to swear you in unless there's someone from outside.
Thank you. It's just me.
Okay.
All right, next slide, please. You can actually go 2 forward. Good morning, everyone. I'm Callie Mersman. Sorry about the fonts here. It doesn't look like it transferred, but I am the Senior Strategist for Transit and Mobility and participated in the project team for the Euclid Green TLCI. This is a Transportation for Livable Communities initiative plan that spans Euclid Avenue from Noble Road in East Cleveland to Green Road in the city of Cleveland. As you can see, the majority of the project area is in the city of Cleveland. This project was funded by NOACA through their TLCI initiative, and I want to thank and acknowledge Andrew Stolke, who is here with us as well. Our consultant team comprised of Smith Group, WSP, Peter Lawson Jones, and Access and Ninegret Partners. And I'd like to give a special acknowledgement to neighborhood planner Sharonda Watley, who is rocking it in Pittsburgh and is no longer with the city, but really made this plan what it is. Next slide, please. The project goals for the TLCI were focused on safety and comfort, traffic calming, pedestrian access and accessibility, and also looked at a lot of the private assets along the corridor to identify strategies for improving investment and revitalization, as well as reflecting local culture and identity. Next slide, please. This project kicked off sort of in the middle of the first year of the pandemic. So in the fall of 2020, we were going through contracting, stakeholder engagement, really trying to figure out how to engage with the community when the safety of being inside together was not guaranteed or assured. And I'll talk more about that in the community engagement section. But the plan's development has spanned the entirety of 2021, and we've spent the first part of 2022 finalizing it and going for approvals. NOACA Executive Director has approved the plan, and this approval and request for adoption by City Planning Commission is the final stage in making the plan adopted and final within the city. Next slide, please. And go ahead. So the consultant team did quite a lot of inventorying of existing conditions, and these insights will be divided into insights about the public realm, the public right-of-way from basically building face to building face, including the sidewalk and roadway, and then the private realm. Along Euclid Avenue in this section, there's a right-of-way width of about 100 feet, including sidewalks in the pedestrian realm. However, as you can see, the context changes quite a lot across the corridor. In East Cleveland, there are solid building frontages and facades, several lanes for traffic, and limited sidewalk areas. And then as you move to the east, there is a lot of topography changing with a large hillside on the south side that lends to pedestrian access challenges, wider green space, and parking lots and other larger setbacks. Please go to the next slide. The consultant team inventoried several aspects of this public realm, including walking infrastructure, sidewalks, areas where the slope is especially steep on the south side, RTA bus stops. This is an RTA priority corridor. As you can see, the bus stops with the red triangles are ones that are currently inaccessible from an ADA perspective because of that southern hillside. They also inventory traffic signals, crosswalks, and look for opportunities for improvement. Next slide, please. Part of the public realm assessment also included looking at crash statistics with a special focus on crashes leading to serious injuries or deaths, which is consistent with our Vision Zero focus at the city, as well as crashes involving vulnerable road users. So those are people walking, biking, or using motorcycles. Next slide, please. The consultant team looked at vehicular volumes as well. This is an important regional corridor in addition to being a neighborhood commercial corridor. So when we looked at the lanes available in the street and the traffic volumes that utilize them, we did assess the potential for a road diet and road narrowing, and the traffic volumes for the most part indicate a need for the number of lanes and the division that are there now. Although we will talk about some opportunities for traffic calming and complete streets elements later in the presentation. Next slide, please. And so combined, muted myself. This inventory of public realm existing conditions led to recommendations around improved bicycle and pedestrian connections, and other non-motorized improvements, some recommendations for transit facilities and operations, and signal upgrades and improvements, which we'll get into in the recommendation section. Next slide, please. Looking at the private realm, the consultant team inventoried existing land use. So you can see here a color-coded corridor assessment of how different parcels are currently utilized. A really big finding here, and this is by parcel number, not by land area, but a key standout is that about a third of parcels along this corridor segment are currently vacant. And so this highlights the potential for the reinvestment and revitalization strategies and community development strategies to bring this urban neighborhood commercial corridor back to life. We also see large percentages of commercial use, retail stores, and entertainment along the corridor, as well as some mix of residential and office. So it is truly a mixed use corridor with a lot of potential to build. Next slide, please. Zoning obviously informs land use opportunities, so they compiled a zoning inventory as well. Next slide. And did a form and frontage assessment looking at the facades and what really creates that street edge along the corridor. As you can see, similar to the land use, there is a broad diversity of form along the corridor, ranging from completely vacant to surface parking lots to more suburban style development, all the way to historic storefronts and commercial structures. Next slide, please. These insights were combined into an assessment of the corridor that identified 3 key commercial nodes, as well as opportunities that are parcel specific around preserving, enhancing, or transforming. So looking and identifying areas that are already quality that can benefit from continued stability and investment and contribute to the neighborhood character of the corridor. Opportunities for enhancement that can use some additional investment and support to build on existing strengths. And then areas that are ripe for transformation, underutilized properties that can benefit from redevelopment to lend to that overall corridor character. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the community voice was incredibly important to this process. I mentioned that this plan unfolded as the COVID pandemic was unfolding as well. And so in this planning process, we expanded beyond sort of the traditional 3 TLCI public meeting approach. Phase 1, in defining the vision, we had a steering committee tour of the corridor and then convened several focus groups with transportation related stakeholders and agencies, met with local business and public partners. I mentioned that part of this corridor is in the city of East Cleveland, and so engaging with them and getting insights from that community was very important. And then in April, we kicked off our purely public engagement with a series of hybrid kickoff meetings where people could join in person or virtually, depending on their levels of comfort. Over the course of the summer of 2021, in addition to steering committee meetings, city staff and consultants attended a variety of resident engagement opportunities, including focus groups at some of the housing developments along the corridor, a pastoral anniversary party at a neighborhood church. We did door-to-door canvassing, hosted meetings in neighborhood parks, and attended back-to-school fairs to try and get as diverse a perspective and input as we could from community members and people that utilize the corridor. There was also a paper and an online survey deployed throughout the development of the plan that included interactive community mapping, and we promoted that through tabling at some of the community events I listed earlier. And then finally, rounding out in the winter of 2021, we hosted neighborhood open houses to share plan recommendations and get final feedback before the final plan was created. Next slide, please. Key community insights really range from seeing that the public infrastructure, there are a lot of potholes on the street. People really wanted the roads and sidewalks to be fixed. There was a lot of interest in housing, investment and transformation, and green space enhancements, as well as helping people to know what assets are already in the neighborhood along the corridor. There are a couple of parks and some potentially very accessible green spaces that some people said that they weren't even aware of. Next slide, please. When we look at how people see the corridor now, they told us that there was a lot of opportunity for improvements. There's some dissatisfaction with the trash and some of the activities going on along the commercial corridor, but it is a place where a lot of people shop and access what they need. And so thinking about adding lighting, improving walkable destinations was a key desire that we heard from residents. Next slide. And when we asked about what they imagined and dreamed of for the corridor, it was things ranging from the built environment to more on the development and nurturing revitalization side. So ranging from fixing the potholes and making sidewalks more accessible, adding amenities like flowers and benches, bike trails, all the way to programming and education, job centers, food markets in the summer, etc. Next slide, please. So key findings from the community engagement is that this is a major transportation corridor. We recognize its regional significance, but it is also a neighborhood commercial corridor that needs to be sensitive to the surrounding context. Accessibility is a big concern, both in terms of routine maintenance of roadways and sidewalks, but also the topography of the very steep hillside on the south side of the corridor, the staircases that are there now, and the grades of existing sidewalks. And safety is a vital and essential component for all road users that we heard from. So the takeaway from the public realm piece is that infrastructure projects can help spur development and investment and support access and vitality in the corridor. Next slide, please. When we focus in on the private realm, the land use flanking the corridor, there are key publicly owned sites, including a CMSD school property, several sites held by the sewer district, and then land bank properties that are key opportunities for new development. Public safety, desire for lighting, sort of cleanup and care is a key opportunity, as well as integrating public art to reflect the neighborhood culture and identity. And Chandler Park, which is sort of in the central commercial node of the corridor that was identified, is a hidden gem and should really be capitalized on to foster local entrepreneurship and neighborhood identity. Next slide, please. So as we shift into recommendations, as you've heard through the course of this presentation, we focused in on public realm and private realm. So when we look at the public realm, there are recommendations within the roadway curb to curb that include intersection upgrades and some signal and traffic control improvements, highlighting key pedestrian crossings and improving the transit experience. There is also a recommendation for an urban trail that is a long-term transformative concept that the plan highlights to connect from east to west along Euclid. Recommendations for the sidewalk and curbside zone include increased site amenities and furnishings, lighting, and that public art and identity component. And then there are broader goals around infrastructure improvements that include some aspirational ideas like burying utility wires and making public Wi-Fi available, for example, as well as some things that are more short-term, lower cost to implement, like expanding micromobility, scooter and bike share service to the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So this graphic represents conceptually how all of these recommendations fit together within the public realm. You see the proposed trail, that long-term transformative recommendation on the south side of the road, navigating the steep southern slope. You see improved transit waiting environments, pedestrian refuge islands, and enhanced crossings, some in-road medians to help calm that traffic down where turning lanes are not necessary, enhanced street lighting, and also plazas and public space in the private realm. Next slide, please. The plan includes specific call-outs for these detailed recommendations along the corridor. So I won't go through these, but this is how the recommendations are presented in the public realm, highlighting where medians should be considered, for example, areas for intersection improvements, signal upgrades, etc. So if you can kind of scroll regularly, I think there are 3 more of these, Maurice, to show the entire corridor span. And then we switch to the private realm. And recommendations are very focused on enhancing land use and character, building on the mixed use identity of the corridor, enhancing site design for walkability, and providing a diversity of housing options for people who are currently in the neighborhood and may be interested in moving in. Facade improvements and the addition of public plazas add to that neighborhood identity and walkability. And there are also strategies around creating and fostering and supporting an equitable economy, including programs for financing for small businesses, encouraging wealth and local ownership, and really mentoring and supporting the business district and workforce along the corridor. Next slide, please. And you can scroll through these at a measured pace. So these recommendations are portrayed similarly to those in the public realm. You'll see the colors of buildings kind of follow that preserve, enhance, and transform approach. And then the commercial nodes, those 3 commercial nodes for focus are also identified here. And then the final part of the plan is an implementation strategy that outlines what can be potentially considered for integration into a resurfacing project that's under design right now. You have seen that in mandatory referrals in previous meetings. So we're taking some of the pavement upgrades and pedestrian crossing enhancement recommendations here, working with capital projects to integrate those as much as possible into that project's scope, budget, and design. We know that there are additional short-term actions and longer-term transformative recommendations that we will need to tackle outside of that project. And so this phasing chart included in the plan outlines that strategy and approach, as well as some preliminary cost estimates and partners to work with to achieve those. And that is an overview, rather quick, of the Euclid TLCI process. But thank you to Councilmember Hairston, who championed this process, really helped us connect to residents, and also to Sharonda Watley and our consultant team who managed it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else here to speak, or the councilman? I just can't see, but I don't think so. Just want to check. Okay, commission members, any comments or questions?
Madam Chair, question, and I'll respond with a comment. How involved were youth? I'm bothered by what we're doing in this city by not involving younger folks, because it's not about us and it's not about me, not naturally, about who's going to use this and who's going to be most impacted. But I'm not talking about just showing up, but having been part of the process. So they learn about engagement, they learned about process, they learn about how to affect change. So I'll be quiet and listen.
Yeah, so I mentioned this very briefly in passing earlier, but our community engagement for this plan was well aligned with the start of the 2021 school year. And so Euclid Park School, which is right on the corridor, hosted us at their back to school fair. And I got to speak to several students there who go to school, travel on this corridor regularly. And they actually filled out surveys and gave us a lot of perspective about their experience on the corridor. We shared a little bit about the plan and changes that they would see coming soon with the resurfacing project. So I think that's a good example of partnership alignment. And we, through many of the plans that we do, we're always learning about strategies to increase that involvement and ownership over the process among our youth.
I would like to recommend and strongly suggest that in these studies, there's money allocated to create a youth council. Every one of these TLCI projects, so that they understand what it means to plan. They understand what it means to advocate and not just get their thoughts, but they're part of the process and they have a voice in it. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. I would say, Callie, I think the thing I learned from the East 66th Street TLCI plan was that there's always money in these plans for public engagement and to hire consultants to do public engagement. And I think one of the potential kind of sort of systems change is to utilize some of the funds that the consultants use around public engagement to actually hire and pay youth to be engaged. And that's what happened on East 66th. Which is the youth were paid stipends to be engaged throughout the whole process and to lead parts of it. and that is also potentially a groundbreaking change for how all the projects could think about public engagement, because I think there's a bit of a kind of a pretty standard approach, cookie cutter approach to how the consultants do it and the timing of it and how it's done. But there's enough money in the budgets that are allocated because it's required to do it to potentially, kind of utilize those funds a little differently. So I appreciate Commissioner Fluker raising it, because I think it's something that you guys could do regularly, truthfully.
We will. I'll just add that we'll pass along that feedback to NOACA as well as the funding source. And I think that, I have a few ideas about how we could integrate it into scope and consultant review. So thank you.
And your director led the process, so she is expert in this, so she can speak to it. But I do think it did sit with me after the process that that there's enough money in the consultant system to think about it differently. So also, okay. So commission members, any other questions or comments?
I would like to move to accept the plan as presented. I know this is always difficult when you cross city lines to help affect change. So good luck.
And
We have a motion?
I'll second Downing.
And a second, we can call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item is the 140th Street Rehabilitation Project. And also going to ask that Douglas, who's here, and anyone else who's presenting this, that is seeking final approval, but that you move really, really quickly. I think we've got to get through some items still on the agenda. So, please move quickly through the slides. This was approved unanimously, but has conditions. I'm not going to read them all, but if the commission members could take a kind of a quick look at the conditions from local, as I swear in Douglas and anyone else who's going to speak. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do, and Christine Meskey from Boulevard Studios is also going to be speaking today.
Okay, and as I said, move fast, but then focus and focus maybe on these 5 items as you go through, so that we can hear how you either will be addressing them or cannot address them.
Understood. All right. Thank you, Chair Curry. Yes, if we can move through the presentation. I'll move very quickly through these first few slides. This is an engineering and construction project that will be constructed by Ohio Department of Transportation from St. Clair Avenue to Lakeshore Boulevard on East 140th Street in Collinwood. Next slide. You can keep going, please. Basically, the goal of the project is to narrow the traveled way of the roadway. So to take right away from vehicles, apply 2 bike lanes, one in each direction, obviously, and give more room back to the streetscape. So we're targeting 6 to 7 foot tree lawns throughout the area and prioritizing pedestrians. Next slide, please. You can see a sketch there of what we're going to be doing. You can continue, please. North of I-90, we are not able to narrow the roadway because we want to maintain street parking on the west side of 140th. There are multifamily housing that regularly uses the street parking. So there we are keeping a 40-foot cartway, but still able to maintain the bike lanes through narrow travel lanes and a buffer to the parking lane. Next slide, please. And that's just a picture of the existing conditions. Next slide, please. And again, just taking out the tree lawn, or taking out the paved tree lawn, putting trees and grass wherever possible. Next slide, please. You can continue. Okay, I'll turn it over to Christine here. Well, actually, if you go back to the slide with the trash cans on it and the furnishings, thank you. I will turn it over to Christine to discuss the streetscape and what we are doing as a result of the discussions earlier this week at Design Review.
Good morning. As Doug mentioned, we went before design review earlier this week, and we are issuing a stage 2 drawing set on Monday. So we did take into account as many of the comments as we could that were feasible for the project. So I'll note that the actual selections of streetscape furnishings were acceptable, but they asked that maybe we rethink the colors. We had just, I think we had selected black for everything except for the bike loops, which were going to be like a silver color. But to maybe look at, you know, once we understand, there's a public art piece that you'll see in a minute. Once we understand what that'll look like more, to make sure that the colors complement, and look for these ways where we can kind of carry through the design through the whole corridor so it feels more unified and more like a streetscape development. We have some areas of specialty paving, primarily at bus stops and some key intersections, and where we have some gateways. And then we also are going to put in pretty much as many trees as we can, anywhere where we do have that grass tree lawn, and where we don't have interference with utilities, and we have enough depth in that tree lawn to support planting a tree by ODOT standards. The 3 selections there will carry through the entire corridor. These were selected with urban forestry as you know, good trees that will handle the conditions out there, but also be small enough, because we do have a lot of overhead power lines along the tree lawn areas. Next slide. We've selected, again, a few areas where we can really punctuate the corridor, the beginning and the end. And we have a spot where we're at the end of the freeway ramp, where we're going to do some special gateway features. And then we have transit stops that we're looking at enhancing. One of the comments that we received was, why not enhance all the transit stops, whether it has a shelter or not? So we did take that into account. We added some specialty paving and benches at each one of those along the corridor. Next slide, please. This is a kind of a conceptual illustration of what those gateway features can look like. We are proposing a very simple wall, and then some sort of painted messaging. East 140th isn't necessarily what it's going to say. We think it may say Collinwood, but we're working with local representatives to kind of determine what that will say. We also received a comment about the font maybe not being a stencil, so we are going to look at some alternative fonts that are maybe a little bit more appropriate. And at each one, we do have some very hardy, easy to maintain landscaping proposed. Next slide, please. And then we have a Csx Bridge Overpass. We are proposing some new handrails as it approaches. There isn't a lot we can do underneath from an aesthetic standpoint, because it does belong to CSX, but we are doing what we can as we lead up. We developed a median, and we're proposing some specialty paving in that median. It's probably gonna, you know, help traffic flow, but also really, you know, again, carry through the design through the entirety of the corridor. Next slide, please. On this side, this is where our key public art piece is going to go. There is an RFP going out soon. So we don't know what it's going to look like yet. It's going to be obviously up to the artist, but when we do, when we have an idea of what those colors are, we are going to make selections for colors of the streetscape furnishing, so that kind of that theming carries through the whole corridor. Next slide, please. And I think that's back to you, Doug.
Thank you. Yeah, and so yeah, like Christine said, I mean, the major points that we're addressing based on design review are providing flexibility for the colors of the fixtures to coordinate with the public art, and we added those northbound paving areas and decorative paving areas with furnishings to kind of complement the southbound side of the street that we already were doing. Traffic signal removal is occurring as part of the process to prioritize pedestrians. You keep moving through these pretty quickly, I believe. Next slide, please. We can keep going. Yeah, I think that's really all we had to present. Just wanted to let everybody know that we had heard design review's comments, and those changes are already going to be reflected in the submittal that Christine mentioned that's going in Monday.
Okay. And it looks like this is heading for bid and award. So is it fully funded?
Yes, that's correct. There's a combination of ODOT funding in the project and local funding for the project.
Okay,
It's
great.
going to bid in the spring. Yeah, it should be under construction next summer.
Nice. So commission members, I will just say beforehand, it's so nice on one agenda to see so many TLCI and street plans. So I commend the director and the administration, as you know, just seeing also the implementation of bike and pedestrian kind of forward designs that are leading that way is just super exciting to see, and then to see funding associated with it all. So it makes me really happy. That's my comment.
Thanks. I can just share that we inherited this because it was scoped and bonded earlier, but we are excited about it. I did want to share a few comments, and I do see Tara Petrus also has her hand raised, our public art coordinator. Did want to share, for the signage, the gateway signage, if you'd be willing to come back with a final design, or at least share administratively with the staff, that would be great once you finalize that. I did speak with the councilman. He is broadly supportive of this, and I told him I would represent his ideas around preferring tree pits over grassed tree lawns just for easier maintenance. So I would put that out there. And then Tara also has her hand raised.
Thank you, Director. I just wanted to say to the commission that thanks to this project, the public art portion was generated by capital projects. So Chapter 186 allowed for that public art piece to be a part of this. We did just get approval earlier this week to issue the RFQ, and we're going to work through the Public Art Committee, which also has two ad hocs appointed by both council members Polenzek and Hairston, with one ad hoc from each of their neighborhoods due to the fact that this streetscape project crosses both borders. And so the RFQ will be out, and we'll go from there with the Public Art Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Commission members?
Yeah, I would like to address tree grades, and I've been traveling as of late the last month. I've seen some really inventive ways to handle irrigation and grades so that the trees don't grow into the grapes like I see a lot around Cleveland. I just think we should start looking at other innovative ways to capture rainwater and be respectful of the trees because they do have to grow. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move approval incorporating the design review comments and Commissioner Fluker's comments about exploring tree placement.
Would you be okay if the signage went back to staff versus the
Yes,
commission?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be comprehensive, but missed that one. And in addition, that the signage package be reviewed by staff.
I'll second. Thank you.
Okay, motion a second, call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. Looking forward to seeing this one start. So thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you all.
This next item is a special presentation, Bedrock Phase 00. Streetscape plan. This is for conceptual approval. I'm going to swear everyone in, and then the director is going to open this one. So anyone who's here to speak to this, there's a very weird noise. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I'm sorry, can someone please mute for a moment to figure out sound? Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chair Curry.
One more time. Anyone, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yeah, that's Nora.
I think
You
Nora,
here for this
please
case?
be mute, Nora. It's Nora. So Nora's going to have to probably exit out, reboot, and come back in. Anyone else speaking, please?
Cullen Mavis with MKSK. I am the consultant for the project, and I can do the swearing in.
Okay. And then
Panic
Director
as
Wong.
well, Chair Curry.
Okay. Hi, Deb. All right, Director Wong, why don't you go first while Nora reboots, and we'll start this.
Sure thing. So this is Bedrock's Phase 00 plan for Streetscape. I just want to emphasize that before any major infrastructure plans go through in this area, the Bedrock team was pretty emphatic with the city around making improvements now. And that beautification is a really important part of their goals as they work on their future long-term plans. So, you know, for me, I'm really excited to see the Streetscape initiative. It's encouraged, and I hope property owners also take a note on how to take a cue with regard to Streetscape. I do want to mention that the design review committee originally reviewed this for final and shared, you know, through this design review comments that it was going to go down to conceptual. Wanted to share with the commission, should you find that the Streetscape through your discussion meets your requirements and standards, just for consideration final. However, again, this is being presented for conceptual. Our staff member, who is the new manager of urban design and architecture, Allison Honey, may also provide comments after the presentation with some of the questions related to the design review comments. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the project team.
Great, thank you, Director, and much appreciation to you and your entire team, as well as Chief of Operations T-Win, MoCap, and the Utilities Department through Cleveland Public Power. We have greatly appreciated your support and guidance through this process. Chair Curry and the Commission members, I appreciate the opportunity to present Bedrock's Phase 0 Street Beautification and Amenities Project to you all this morning. As the Commission is likely aware, in 2021, Bedrock, in partnership with the City of Cleveland, announced our commitment to advance the development of a 30-year strategic vision for our assets, including Tower City Center and the Cuyahoga Riverfront, this in concert with the Vision for the Valley initiative. Bedrock has advanced our key initiatives in our strategic planning process, including engaging our master plan consultant, Ajay Associates, as well as our private civil engineering team led by Cleveland-based Osborne Engineering. The Phase 0 projects you will hear about this morning, as presented by our consultants from MKSK, will demonstrate to you our continued support and commitment to invest our resources today in the beautification of our properties and the public space surrounding them. This includes resources necessary to provide ongoing diligent maintenance and care of this investment while we advance our comprehensive master plan developments. The Phase 0 project is the second commitment of investment following the opening of Skylight Park and Tower City Center in July. With that, I will turn it over to Cullen Maves of MKSK to quickly walk through the presentation. Cullen? Cullen, can you hear me?
I think we may have lost.
Cullen seems to be, is it Cullen?
Cullen is on mute, I
He
think.
seems to be muted.
All right.
Deb, can you present this, or
Yeah.
you want?
I will, I'm going to let them know to get Cullen back on board, but I will kick it off, Chair. All right. So we'll start. The first slide that you see is an outline of Tower City Center, as well as our riverfront properties, and demonstrates along the major corridors surrounding Tower City Center and through the Gateway District, where we are looking at our initial installation of our Phase 0 improvements. This focuses on the entryway of Tower City Center with connectivity to Public Square down to the May, and of course the civic links along Ontario from Public Square up to Huron and Prospect Avenue. Next slide, please. The team is comprised, along with Bedrock, is Land Studio, MKSK, Osborne as mentioned, as well as our contractor at the AKA team with Zenith and Royal Landscaping rounding out the effort. Next slide. In the squares, you will see the focus of our initial investments of tree canopy, lighting, planters, and benches, and how it is congruent to the entryways that mark complete access and continuation of what we hope will be the public square experience into Tower City Center through Skylight Park, as well as the tree canopies plantings that will take place on Euclid and in the Prospect area as well. Next slide. In Public Square, we hope to, sounds like someone's on board. Cullen, are you there?
I am. I apologize, everyone. Everything froze and it shut down completely. So
no worries. I think I did you proud, but I am going to turn it over to you. So please go forward with the Tower Plaza. Thanks, Cullen.
All righty. So here we're looking at Tower Plaza. If we go to the next slide, we can take a look at some of the details. So the intent of these improvements are to create human scale environmental comfort for the streetscapes and the entryways to the buildings and blocks around this area. And so we've really focused in on creating details and elements that provide enjoyment to the people passing through these spaces every day, while being nimble, knowing that these are temporary or semi-permanent improvements that are meant to be flexible as the master plan moves through its development. And so you can see here what we're proposing are some large scale steel planters in front of each of the entryways, really aligning with the grand process of coming into Terminal Tower, as well as adding some additional plantings at the light posts themselves. We can go to the next slide. We have proposed large trees at install for an immediate impact. These are all city approved street trees for the city of Cleveland, and we're installing them at 2 and 3 caliber so that they will have an immediate canopy impact in all of the spaces. We also received some questions about final mature size and whether or not that would create any sort of conflicts with other street elements. I use the analogy of these are like bonsai. Trees will grow to their soil volume. And so since they are in a confined soil volume, we are not anticipating they will fill out, probably grow to like a 3 or 4 caliber tree, but that's really not a huge canopy tree. It's going to have a high canopy. It's going to provide human comfort, but it's not going to outgrow its space. We're also looking at using some drifts of different varieties and textures of shade plantings in this area so that it will withstand the environment, but also create some really nice bright coloring. Next slide, please. And so you can see the existing condition today. And then the next slide shows you the proposed condition. And so you can see here we've aligned what we're calling our Tetris forest with the entryways of Terminal Tower and really providing a kind of grand entrance into the space. If you go to the next slide, you can see some of the details of that. We've spent a lot of time thinking through kind of clear spaces, heights, making sure that these planters create visual interest, but don't create visual barriers so that you can always see over the plantings, as well as creating just a very vibrant environment for the entranceway. Next slide, please. And so moving around to the next block, which is the May and the procession there, we're really paying attention to creating a continuity of street edge with these planters and street trees. If you go to the next slide. Along the Euclid Avenue and South Roadway street edge, we'll continue that language of planters and street trees, but also as this is a very wide sidewalk, so trying to create some differentiation between the tenant spill out space and the strolling zone, and so creating some more intimate spaces for seating or potential future dining spaces underneath the canopy of the May. And here we're continuing the street trees of the existing streetscape, and then also using a more refined palette up along the May for a kind of really playing off of some of the refinement of the architecture there and being respectful to that language. Next slide, please. As you can see, the existing conditions today with that deep sidewalk condition, and the next slide, what we're proposing. And I want to point out here, we also received a comment about just the number of elements and manholes and things that happen within a streetscape. We are well aware of those. We have been out documenting them over and over again, just to make sure that our alignments are not going to be landing on, well, you can see there, one of the wayfinding elements on top of the CPP manhole, on top of a water manhole. All of that is shown in our GMP plans, and we have been making sure that these planters will not be falling on those, but also want to point out that most of the planters are able to be placed at the time of install. So even if, God forbid, one is missed, when we go for install, we'll make sure they're not sat directly on top of a manhole. So next slide. And then just again, calling out some of the dimensions here, trying not to create any visual barriers with the plantings, but also creating a nice human experience as you pass through this corridor. Next slide, please. Moving down to the Ontario Street spine, we see this as kind of a throughway gateway experience. So we're really focusing more on kind of just the passing through experience of people moving through the space. You go to the next slide. We're focusing here on really just the street edge and creating a continuity of streetscape along that edge and a comfortable canopy and environment for the strolling zone up against the buildings. It is one of the more constrained areas of the site, and also involves a number of bus shelters that are there today. We have been working closely with the RTA to identify what are the clearance zones that they require. We've made sure that we've stayed 6 foot clear of all of the bus shelters. We're also making sure that our street trees are set 3 feet back from the front of curb, which is a foot more than what they had requested, which was 2 feet. This keeps us, again, clear of all of the utilities that are along that corridor. They mostly exist within the first 2 feet. And also just in general, creating clear space between each of the planters. Next slide, please. And then we continue that language down to, past Prospect on Ontario with some planters outside of the Trust building, as well as some understory planting underneath those existing trees that kind of create that initial gateway experience into the corridor. Next slide, please. And our palette is a little bit more part shade to sun. There's a little bit more light in this corridor, so we focused on creating a little more vibrancy. But the street trees themselves are really kind of using the same palette that will be tying together the entire corridor. Next slide, please. And same thing for the south entrance of Ontario Street, creating that continuity of space. So you can see the existing condition today, and then go to the next slide. You can see we're inserting those planters in between what's existing and setting them far back from the sidewalk to make sure we're staying clear of all of that material that is out front. And some of the dimensionality that we've been inherited to through our design. At the Prospect Avenue site, here we were really trying to provide almost like a park-like setting, understanding that this is a major axis between Terminal Tower and Tower City, but also a corridor that today is pretty devoid of anything within the streetscape realm. So trying to really play that up, create a level of interest that will bring and draw people down into this corridor and really start to celebrate those entranceways. So if we go to the next slide. We have a variety of elements here, really more using the same materiality and planting palettes, but starting to try and create more of a playful environment. So we start with a street mural art piece that's going to be along the streetscape edge and denote an amenity zone to start to break up some of that cross-section of the sidewalk itself, using the same type of steel planters, but in a trapezoidal form for a little bit more interest that plays off of the geometry of the streetscape art. adding some benches for socializing and human respite, and then also incorporating what we're calling a social bench around the Tower City Rotunda to really provide people with a place to sit out, have lunch, engage with colleagues, engage with their friends, and really start to draw people into this space. We're also very aware that we're within an extremely hallowed and ornate architectural field here. And so especially in front of the Midland Trust building, we're looking to start to play up some of that. And so some of the planters actually carry through the detailing of the buildings themselves. Next slide, please. And so again, a continuation of the plantings that we have and the palette from the other streetscapes, as well as the kind of higher canopy. Here, we really focused on having base-shaped plantings to create a really kind of exciting and ethereal moment for the trees themselves. And then if we go to the next slide, over by the Midland Trust, bringing that more refined palette into the design. Slide, please. And so you can see the existing condition today, and then the proposed condition with the trapezoidal planters, the sidewalk mural, and the social tier bench here. Next slide. And again, making sure that we have clear distances in all cases so that we're not impeding any of the pedestrian flows within the corridor. We have also devoted a percentage of every planter to seasonal changeouts. We understand that urban environments are tough for all plants, and we want to make sure that these planters stay fresh and exciting and something new with each season that people want to be out and among. So looking at winter changeouts as well as summer and fall changeouts so that they will continuously have interest in addition to their background of street trees and perennials and shrubs. Next slide, please. And lighting is another element of this activation. So in addition to improving the environment from a visual standpoint and human comfort standpoint, we're also trying to improve it from a lighting and security standpoint. So we've been working with CPP on a number of their lights to get those relamped and turned on, but also Bedrock is committed to updating its facade sconces so that they will be provide the same amount of light and temperature as the street lights along the streets here, and also just provide that level of lighting along the sidewalk. We're also looking to include, if we go to the next slide, uplighting of the trees along Prospect, another element of trying to create that interest and draw to bring people down to that central access point, adding an LED strip light along the social tier bench, again, just trying to create some visual interest for the area and something that will make it feel comfortable in the evening hours. Adding festoon lighting to the courtyard garden, a really revered space, a really special space within the corridor, and refurbishing the sconce lights. And we want to highlight that if we go to the next slide, through our partnership and working with CPP, one of the first things that was identified early on in the project was that some of the lights were out and not functioning at Tower Plaza. And if we go to the next slide, they were very wonderful and quick with their improvements and upgrades of these lights. So these are actually, this was a picture taken this week. These have been turned on and are providing a nice sense of security and safety within the plaza itself. So I think there should be one other slide that we had. Yes, thank you. So one other element we wanted to address with respect to the design review comments is the questions about the materiality of Corten steel, which is otherwise known as weathering steel. The reasons for selecting this product is manyfold, honestly. It provides a warmth and textural quality that isn't normally associated with steel. It's a very durable product. So with respect to a typical powder coat, this product, if it gets scratched, it just reseals itself. There's no ongoing maintenance. These planters are supposed to be flexible. They're supposed to be something that is placed, but also can adjust to future conditions. And we thought that with powder coating, that kind of movement, that kind of moving around and potential exposure would scratch and create ongoing maintenance issues for the planters themselves. They do have a sealing process. So we've worked with this product. I was a PM for some of the projects that you see here, and it weathers quickly in Cleveland climates. It's something that undergoes through precipitation, a sealing process, and then is basically stable for the rest of its lifespan, which is in excess of 10 years. It's one of the most durable steel products on the market. And so again, looking to provide flexibility, but a product that we can use and move around as needed for these activations. But we have proposed for the ongoing maintenance to make sure that there is no staining and there isn't any unwanted conditions on the sidewalk. There will be a break and a shim underneath every planter, but also these Bedrock will be providing power washing and cleaning throughout the entire first phase, which should take about roughly 3 months to do the sealing process. And then after that, if it's necessary, there's also a seal coat you can put on the planters themselves to completely shut off any sort of staining or bleeding from the planters. It does create a little bit darker outside appearance, but aside from that, it has no other impacts to the planters themselves.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to point out a few of the projects shown here. It's Towpath and then also Church and State that have had successful installations of these planters and material within the projects.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to ask commission members for any comments or questions. This was really for conceptual approval. It will come back. But so I think any guidance or comments or insights from the commission members would be really useful for this early stage.
I'm just applauding Bedrock for being a responsible neighbor downtown. You know how I've been all over Ontario and how it's been sort of forgotten. So I think this is a good step in the right direction. And I am also happy that you decided to use planters and not bollards and things that don't feel welcoming and engaging. Thank you.
Also, I did want to clarify something I just said. I think originally the Bedrock group wanted final approval, and I think local actually granted sort of more conceptual approval. So actually, I'll leave it to the commission to see if you're okay with final approval with the resolution with staff on some of the items. But we can discuss that as we go. First, let's open it up to more comments and questions. I have one, but I'll wait to see if commission members have any other.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to move for final approval with resolution of issues through staff. I think this is a wonderful project and a beautiful design, and I really applaud the project group and Bedrock for doing this, much needed. So
Okay, we
that
have
is
a motion. So, and I'll just clarify, that is for final approval to come back to staff with the details. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'll make my comment. If it's really possible to go back to the Ontario Street set of slides, it's just a comment. I must agree with Commission members and Commission Member Fluker and Downing. Fantastic. Actually applaud the leadership of Bedrock to take a leadership role in this kind of public realm planning and this kind of intermediate step, if you will, or this early step in making improvements. I think it's important. It's an incredible amount of investment. I like Corten. I know how expensive it is. So it's a substantive investment that they're making. But my comment is just something to think about in future phases, because I think these are also interim solutions for the long term. And so Ontario is a really, really difficult stretch. And I know I'm not telling you something you don't know as a design team, as an owner. It functions as the kind of entrance point to the city from the freeway. It is the first point of entry for people coming in to come to the stadiums or to public square. And I think that this improvement will make it visually just much better as sort of like a welcoming for visitors downtown. But from a day-to-day user point of view, I think long-term Bedrock really needs to think about the fact that this stretch has no active uses on it. So when you say the word activation, it's primarily a visual activation, which is important, but there really does need to be some structural thinking in future phases about the lower level of Jack's Casino, that those are all blank walls. And I don't know what's possible. So I say this knowing that there are uses behind there that prevent this from happening. But the little bit of the kind of harsh pedestrian environment actually comes from the fact that there's no active uses on the ground floor. So, and the complexity of the concentrated bus stations, which I understand are there. So I just wanted to point out that it's a tough problem to solve. It's one that I hope that you continue to try to address, and that the beautification is one thing, but the structural planning for how to tackle this requires something very sort of significant in a future phase. So I'm just going to challenge you guys to not sort of let this one sit and really try to tackle Ontario. I also think it has great bones and it could be a special place that could be really wonderful to be in, but it is not that now. And so that's my big challenge for you, Deb, for going forward. It's not an easy one. I don't have any answers. I just know that it's bigger than Streetscape.
Thank you, Chair Curry. Thank you, Commission members. We appreciate your support, ongoing support of the department as we discussed. We will accept that challenge and we look forward to working with this commission and the entire administration council in the city. This will take all partners, all stakeholders. We've had great receptivity and we will move forward with that challenge, working together with our civic stakeholders and public partners. Thank you again for your support this morning. We greatly appreciate it and we look forward to moving forward.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Downing?
Yes.
Fluker?
Yes.
Curry?
Yes.
Slife?
Yes.
Motion carries. Look forward to seeing this soon. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We have additional, this is from staff, from Callie, I think was the next one. Are we going to go to the, and I'm going to ask this since we're only have 20 minutes, maybe we could save the complete and green streets for last, just make sure that we get the approvals out of the way that need permits. So let's go forward to the public art real quick and try to get these done so that we don't lose a quorum, and then we'll come back, Callie, if we have time. So the first one is a mural project at 6102 Store Avenue. Is Malik Rashid here to speak to this?
Yes, I am here, Commissioner.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
And Tara, do you want to open this or do you want her to go ahead?
I can open it real quickly. Okay. This is not in a design review district, so it's just coming to you all. It did get the support via an email from Councilman McCormick, whose ward this is in, and I think is a very meaningful mural, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Malak to do the presentation.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you all for having me here today. I am with Smart Development. We are a 501c3 housing and social service agency that mainly works with refugees, immigrants, and limited English-speaking communities in Northeast Ohio. We are here today to discuss a mural installation by Kubra El-Halahi. You can go to the next slide. Kubra is a refugee from Iraq. She's lived in Cleveland since 2012. She has been a part of a handful, almost a little over a dozen of art exhibitions, as she's an artist, incorporates her language and many of her journey to the United States in her art. She most notably was selected as Building Hope in the City's Creative Fusion Artist in Residence as they applied for the Cleveland Foundation's Creative Fusion grant. She is still currently an artist in residency with her studio space on West 46th Street next to the Thomas Jefferson School. And we had applied for a grant from the Cleveland Foundation's Equity Arts Fund to create an additional mural to support her continued work. These are just a list of some exhibits she's been in. We can go to the next slide. This was her first mural, World Peace Begins in Inner Peace. This is a completed mural installation that was done last year on Clark Avenue. This was inspired by her message of peace and hope to continue to inspire. The location is on Store Avenue on Sky Mobile Plus, Urban Gear, and Phone. The owner is in full support as well of the mural installation. He is a part of the same Arab background and supports this. The mural pictured here is Nothing Great Can Be Achieved Without Passion. The reason that Cobra had selected this as her art installation as it will face the Women's Recovery Center. It is something that she feels would be a great inspiration to the women attending the Women's Recovery Center. The Arabic writing is passion in Arabic as well as it is, you see, in English, and it is to inspire the women to continue to persevere through anything that they may be going through. The color palette is something that Cobra wanted to use as an inspiration from women that she actually spoke to at the Women's Recovery Center, is what she told me, and also something that she deems as very soft and elegant. She's very process oriented, so I will say there might be a slight deviation from when it is completed, but it will essentially almost look very similar to this. And the woman in the mural, of course, is Cobra. This is a image of the wall. They have taken down the banners on the side of the wall, the owner. And that is a sketch layout. It'll be 20.5 feet wide by 10 feet tall. And the next slide. This is kind of displaying where the setup is. The Women's Recovery Center is across the street, a little bit adjacent at an angle. It is at a prime location. Primary and quality exterior latex paint is Sherwin-Williams anti-graffiti coating. Smart development, we are on East 40th, our offices, but we will be assuming responsibility and maintenance and collectively working with Metro West CDC to ensure that everything is kept up. The owner plans to keep the building. They've been long-term business owners in the community, so there's no thoughts of selling, and he, as I mentioned, supports the mural being installed on his building.
Thank you. I would note that I didn't realize the Cleveland Foundation has some funding in this, but I think I can abstain. I didn't manage this project and do not benefit financially from it, although I am of Arabic descent, so I don't know if that's not really a conflict, but I will abstain from this, but ask commission members for any of their comments or questions or vote.
I'll move approval. Downing.
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we call the roll?
Downing?
Yes.
Sluker?
Yes.
I'll abstain. You can just note my abstention. Okay.
Paul? I'm sorry, Slife?
Yes.
Motion carries. This one is also a special presentation seeking final approval for a project at 2418 Professor, 820 College, 2221 Professor, 2190 Professor, and 2061 West 10th Street. Restorative walkable mini galleries, phase 1. Sounds interesting. Emily, are you here to present this?
Hi, yes, I am. Thank you so much.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
And I need you to kind of go through it pretty fast. So maybe focus a little less on all the background slides and more about what the proposals are, if that's okay.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm happy to.
Go ahead.
So it's outdoor walkable gallery for aspiring artists and more of an educational resource for artists to kind of learn how to show their work for the first time. And especially if they feel like gallery culture may be unapproachable or they just don't know how to get their start, that's kind of where we step in and help them learn how to show their work from start to finish. So the first phase is 5 units down Professor Avenue, all are on private property except for one, and I have the permission of all of the building owners. So down a few slides, it kind of shows the dimensions. They're fairly small units, 24 by 12 by 8, either anchored to the building or through a post hole with a footer. Steel, powder coated white with solar panel lighting, just so we don't take any of the resources from any of the businesses, and they're kind of self-sustaining. And they'll be covered with tempered glass. Each artist will have 1 unit for a quarter, and then it will change out every quarter, and that will be facilitated by myself and our board. And that's kind of the rundown, really. There is 1 bigger unit, but again, that's also on private property that was signed off on all the business owners. But it's really just to create a really inclusive space for artists while also simultaneously generating more foot traffic in the community.
I move approval. Downing.
Second.
Have an approval and a second. I think it's an amazing, awesome project, and it's pretty cool. So I really applaud you guys for this, and I love that some are on buildings and some are on poles, and it's pretty cool. So thank you. Funding is coming from where?
Oh, so I have a family that is funding the first phase of it in dedicating it to the late passing of her husband, who was an art collector. So I have private funding from a family that heard about the project.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We can call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. Look forward to seeing that for sure.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next item.
I am going to fill in for Sami, who couldn't be here for the presentation. This project is a neighborhood-wide project for the international stencil artist Blake Larot, who is said to have inspired Banksy. 2 of the locations, 417 Prospect and 2077 East 4th, were approved by Landmarks on July 28th, with the conditions not to let the artwork bleed onto the sandstone on the buildings. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And he is a French artist. This is 417 Prospect. Again, this was approved by Landmarks. Next slide, please. And that is the artwork going on the building, ballerina. Next slide, please. And that's just in context on the building. Next slide. Blue Agave, that's the 2077 East 4th Street location. Again, approved by Landmarks. This is the artwork. And in context, next slide, please. This is Ball Player. Next slide, please. And that is the image photoshopped on the building. Again, the artwork will not be on the sandstone or limestone on the building. Next slide, please. This location was actually removed, so we can go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this location, I'm sorry, can you back up? Okay, thank you. This is on one of the RTA properties of the underpass of a bridge at Merwin's Wharf in the Flats. This was approved by Downtown Flats Design Review yesterday. And the only condition they had, next slide, please. And that's the artwork. And that positioning, the Downtown Flats Design Review did ask that it be moved, so it's facing Merwin. Next slide, please. And this is the last location today. This is the location 4829 Superior, where Graffiti Heart is housed. This is the artwork Tug of War. And next slide, please. That is a positioning on the building. And we did receive emails of support from both Carrie McCormick for the downtown locations, as well as Anthony Hairston for the Superior location. Are there any questions?
No. Commission members?
I move approval, incorporating the comment on the placement of the mural for near Merwin's Wharf.
Second, Fluker.
Can we call the roll?
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife,
Yes.
Motion carries. Additional mural, this is on Buckeye Road and also East 93rd. Mr. Soul is the artist. Is he here to present? Tara, do you want to
Yes, I
present
am.
this? Oh, you
he's
are.
here.
I was muted.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
All right, welcome and look forward to hearing this. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not going to read the what is. I'm going to kind of summarize to shoot through. Inspire Your City is a continuation of a body of work in the form of public art murals that I've been doing on the southeast side of Cleveland, working with Union Miles, Mount Pleasant, and other CDCs. This particular project was an opportunity granted through Councilman Blaine Griffin and the funder, St. Luke's Foundation, to install 5 murals within the St. Luke's footprint. The 3 locations that I'm seeking approval for today are location 1 is 128th and Buckeye. Location number 2 is 126 in Buckeye. And location number 3 is at 3375 East 93rd. Location number 1 is a beauty shop owned by a classmate of mine, actually. The concept of these murals stems around literacy, and each of the 5 murals will feature a child in conjunction with books in some capacity. Each one of the mural references for the walls have been selected specifically based off a relationship to those walls. The first location is the daughter of the owner. The second location will feature. Can we go back to number 2, please? Thank you. The second location has not been rendered. We just shot the reference photos for this one. It features the son of poet Mensa Lamont Bay, who's a member and community member of the Buckeye community. Location number 3. Next slide. This particular reference, it features a child of a friend of mine who grew up and still lives in the 93rd community. This wall was actually also selected by Councilman Blaine Griffin. Next slide. All the references for the images that will become the murals were shot by photographer Donald Black Jr. These images represent some of the alternative references that may be used for these walls. Next slide, please. And finally, this is the final rendition of a mural I just installed in May for Union Miles, which represents what a final piece would look like. Next slide, please. And that is pretty much the end of the presentation, and cutting it short. I do better with questions. So if anyone has any questions or concerns, I'll be more than happy to address.
Commission members?
I move approval. Downing.
Do we have a second? While we're waiting for a second, I would.
I'll second.
Really,
Fluker.
a second from, I think, Commissioner Mecklenburg Fluker. I just want to commend you. These are phenomenal. And I also really think that the locations and then your kind of placement on all the locations is exceptional, just in terms of how they sit or how they relate to the context. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry, Slife,
I think I heard a yes. Councilman Slide? I see him. Can you wave? There, we got a yes. So thank you, Mr. Saul, and we really look forward to this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Okay. We have the Meyer Pool murals. seeking final approval, 3266 West 30th. Vince is here to speak to this. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do, Chair Curry, and I'm also here with Susie Underwood, formerly of Metro West, and Aaron Guido of Land Studio, who may want to add a few comments.
Okay, I'm going to ask that we have 3 minutes, so you guys are going to have to move really fast. Just go ahead and show us the finished product, and I'm sure we'll love it, but we'll see.
Okay, this is project. It's part of a larger public art project in the Clark Fulton neighborhoods, and it's working with Metro Health, Metro West, and various members of the community. The city recently completed a major investment in Meyer Pool. The amount was not enough to generate funding through the public art program, but this this funding is funded by other sources, and we're seeking a license from the city to put this artwork up. This is the artist is Dante Rodriguez. He was born in Mexico in 1978, raised in Lorraine by a Puerto Rican family, and he's been an artist really all his life, and he's studied artwork here in Cleveland and has done some other work here in the community. He has a very okay, we're pushing ahead here. I know you want me to talk fast. This is like some previous inspirations. These are neighborhoods in Puerto Rico where buildings are sort of enveloped in color, and neighborhoods, in fact, enveloped in color. This really appealed to Councilwoman Santana in considering the artwork. And these are this is just a statement about the concept for the mural. The artist did work with community, including students at Lincoln West, with various meetings of a neighborhood public art committee that was established for the project, and and of course with the councilwoman and her office staff. So as you've seen some of the murals already, this is a proposal for the east view of the building, the west view from the west. This is the view of the building facing the pool, and this would how it would look from Meyer Avenue with the ground artwork in place and the new mural on the front of the building, which would replace the octopus mural, which is very we're very cognizant of that being a nice mural. We have Councilwoman's approval to replace it, or her opinion that it would be fine to replace it. And so I think in the interest of time, we only have 1 minute left. It looks we would be open for any questions. This did go to Near West Design Review at Tara's request. It's just on the border of the district. It's not actually in it, but it did receive unanimous approval from Near West.
Okay, commission members.
I move approval. Downing.
Second, Fluker. Awesome.
If I could mention quickly, just before you finish the vote, there was one condition with Near West Design Review, and that was to paint the eaves at the top of the mural a complementary color to the colors in the mural and not leave them as they are now.
Okay. So I think Commissioner Downing are okay with adding that to the motion.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's call the roll. It's fabulous.
Downing?
Yes.
Fluker?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Slife?
Yes.
Motion carries. Fabulous project. And so thank you. I think for the future, for all these public art, we may not need so much detail at our level. We're going to assume design review has seen a lot of it. So I think, Tara, you can work with applicants to kind of pare down what they end up showing us when they get here. But we're very supportive and glad to see so much.
Absolutely, I'll notate.
Okay, administrative approvals. If we can see these, if you can go through them just briefly, or I think there's just one. And so.
If you wouldn't. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say if you could read it aloud for those.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Yep.
Determining the method of making public improvements of both designing and constructing updates to the expansion of the inline baggage handling system at Cleveland Hopkins Airport. So to paraphrase, these are upgrades to the baggage handling system. So can I have a motion?
So moved.
By the person who actually put forward the ordinance, and a second. Can we call the roll?
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. So we'll turn over to the director for a nomination to the design review and then a couple of comments. I'm going to say that we're going to have to reschedule the presentation by Callie, if that's okay, to the next meeting.
Thank you. Marka, Assistant Director Fields, do you want to share a little bit more about Dawn Mays for the Southeast Design Review nomination?
Sure. So Dawn has a degree in architecture. She also worked with Buckeye Development Corporation prior to moving on to her new job. Dawn has been really active in our design review committee as a member of Buckeye Development Corporation, and just really has a lot of good comments and ideas. And so when we had a position open, other members really supported the idea of bringing her on as an additional member.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I move approval. Downing.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Yes, Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Welcome, Dawn. It's nice to have new members. All right, Director, do you want to make any comments?
Welcome, Dawn. I second that. I just want to quickly roll through the director's report. While Kelly is not able to present today for informational purposes, by ordinance, we are required to have the Complete and Green Streets policy complete as of today, August 5th. And so what we'll do is we are going to post this online on our website, and we will be reviewing this document with the Transportation Infrastructure Advisory Committee, which is a newly created committee to review all the streetscape projects as recommended through the policy. So we'll continue to update the policy as we refine our processes, and are also taking nominations for resident appointees to this committee, which is the Transportation Infrastructure Advisory Committee. So the link to the nomination will be located on the website, which you can find through this QR code. Please share widely and submit any nominations no later than Wednesday the 17th. And Callie, our senior strategist for transit and mobility, will share the policy update at the next Planning Commission meeting, August 19th. Next slide, please. Destination Cleveland and a host of other partners, such as Greater Cleveland Partnership, are hosting a downtown public space survey. Please share widely. We need more input from across the whole city, not just downtown residents, and looking for folks of various backgrounds to complete the survey on how you would like to see public spaces utilized downtown. Should also mention that Commissioner Fluker is a part of this study as well, a part of the consultant team, and I urged us to gather more survey results from those around the city. The public spaces will address the following that are seen on the screen, including the malls, downtown, public square, Park Plaza, etc. Next slide. Final slide, just a staffing update. I may have mentioned this before, but Matt Moss, who is the Near West city planner, has moved into a new position as the manager for strategic planning initiatives, and he will oversee a new policy vertical, which will include Jero Sarabian, who is our GIS analyst, as well as our new Cleveland Foundation Fellow, Michelle King, who will be our policy strategist. We welcomed Michelle to the team about 2 weeks ago, and what they'll be doing is looking at various policies, including transit-oriented development, housing, tracking data for across all the projects that come to the Planning Commission and across the cluster of integrated development. I'm sad to share that Don Pettit has formally announced his last day, which will be August 31st, and he has served as the Secretary of Landmarks for over 30 years. in the Planning Commission. So wanted to share that widely so that we can all prepare. We can all prepare for this day that's coming. I'm personally, really enjoy Don, and I'm sad to see him go, but he is retiring, and hopefully can send him on a trip around the world or something to visit all of his favorite spots that have landmarks. Then we do have position postings, including one more city planner, which will be released next week. And then, oh, I'm sorry, this one has closed. Senior Assistant Urban Planner and the Landmarks Commission is closed, so that should not be on this slide. But please do look for the city planner posting as we are hiring. All right, that is all from me.
Commission members, anything else anyone wants to raise before we adjourn or talk about?
I do have a question about Matt's new position and who is able to opine and help make sure that the lens that's being used is inclusive and diverse.
It's a great point. And I will say that departmentally, racial equity is something that I will encourage and require with regard to the lens for policy and strategy. So that is something I will be asking the policy team to constantly be including. And should we receive more budget, I hope to be able to add folks to the team that are able to represent various perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all. And meeting is adjourned, and Callie will make it up to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. See you.
Thank you.